Hey friends, so now we're gonna do something amazing. We're gonna go and build a data model project in Power BI, exactly like I do in my real projects. The thing is, I have been involved in many Power BI projects at my work that had bad struggle with the performance and as well delivering wrong numbers. But after investigating, it was not the dashboard was bad or docs. Almost each time it was the bad model underneath the report. So that's why I have prepared for you for this project a nightmare dataset that looks exactly like the one that I have seen in companies. Full chaos, bad shapes, bad data models, and as well bad relationships. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna walk you through this data model step by step, exactly like I do in my real project, so that at the end we're gonna get a healthy data model that is ready for reporting. And yes, this is the best way to learn data modeling, by doing projects, not just like watching disconnected videos, so that at the end you develop like a feeling for the whole process end to end. And very important, you don't just watch me doing the things, you always work with me. So for each step, you pause the video, you do it at your end, and then you continue. Alright my friends, so this is gonna be a fun project to do, and now let's get started.
Battle stations, everybody, let's go, 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 go!
Okay, so now before we jump in, I'm gonna show you the project phases for the data modeling. So first, we have to prepare. We're gonna open the mess, we're gonna set up the workspaces in Power Query, and then we're gonna start investigating. So we're gonna start exploring and have basic understanding of the tables. What is the business? What are the entities? Which one are good candidates for dimensions? Which are for facts? So we're gonna develop like a big picture in our head. The second phase, we start building. So we start building the dimensions. We're gonna find like a group of tables that relate to each others and turn them into clean dimension. So we keep iterating until we build all the dimensions for the data model. Then the third step, we're gonna start building the facts and connect the dimensions to them. So we take all those event tables and start building the fact, and after that we connect all the dimensions to our new facts and start testing, of course, so that the numbers never break silently in our data model. And then the last phase is gonna be the polishing phase. We're gonna go and add security to our data model, and then we do like final test to validate the whole data model. So this is the whole project. So those are the phases that we're gonna go through. And as well, before we start like building anything, we have to keep in our mind those rules. We're gonna follow them from the start to the end, no matter which step we are in. So the first rule or goal is to build star schema. Fact table in the middle, surrounded by dimensions, and we never connect facts table together. The second rule, we have always to understand before do any changes. Especially, we have to understand always first the grain of each table. We have always to say it loud in order to understand the grain, otherwise we're gonna build wrong dimensions and facts. Now the third rule, every info, every column inside our data model must earn its place. So that means if we find any column that is not really needed for analytics and reporting, we have to go and drop it, and that's because of two reasons. First of all, they are wasting space inside our Power BI file. If you have a lot of unnecessary columns, your Power BI file gonna be really heavy and hard to refresh and hard to move, so that's why we remove them to have some space. And the second and more important, they're gonna confuse you during building the visuals and reports. So if we find anything unnecessary, we just go and drop it. We can always go and bring it back if we need it. Rule number 4, we always have to protect the numbers. We must know by heart the totals of our data model, so that each time we do like a change or we connect something new, we go and check those numbers to make sure that they don't break. And now we come to the final rule, or let's say big step. We have to make sure that we are following standards that we have to define before starting the projects. And of course, those standards, we can define them from one project to another, depends on the requirements. But for this project, the standard is gonna be like this. First of all, we have to define the language. Yes, this sounds like simple, but I saw a lot of projects where they are mixing languages in the data model. So yes, the language is going to be here English. Then we have to follow the same naming convention for the table and the columns. And of course, there are a lot of naming conventions, but for this project, we're going to follow the snake case. All letters, all characters are lowered and they are separated with underscore. Now, as well, you have to define the prefixes and the suffixes. Like for example, in the table names, if we have a fact table, we can have the prefix fact score, like for example, fact underscore sales. And if it is dimension, it's going to be dim, shortcut for dimension, like only 3 letters, underscore then the dimension name, like for example, dim underscore customer. This is really important because I saw a lot of confusion if a lot of people are working on the same Power BI project. One gonna call it the underscore customer and another developer gonna call it dimension underscore customer. So we have to set up the standard for our projects before we start building. Now about the columns, we as well could bring some standards, like for example, the surrogate keys. Anything that we create inside the data model gonna end with with the suffix underscore key. Like for example, customer key, product key. So once you see in the data model, okay, it ends with the underscore key, that means we created that. It is not a natural key that came from the source. Like for example, the customer underscore ID, this is something comes from the source file, and the customer underscore key, it is a surrogate key that we just created in the model. So that you have understand the different types of your keys in the model. Now, the last rule, we have to make everything friendly. So that means we have to give for everything, the table name, the column name, even some values inside our tables, friendly, meaningful name, so that once you start building the reports, the value is going to be friendly and everyone can follow the reports. We don't bring any cryptical shortcut technical names that we inherited from the source systems. So this is the setup. Those are the phases, the rules, the mindsets that we're going to follow through the whole project. Now, let's get started with our Power BI project. All right, friends. So now I'm really glad to present you the nightmare dataset that we're going to use for this project. Have a look to this beautiful chaos because, my friends, there is high chance if you join a company, join Power BI projects, that their data model looks exactly like this. I have seen this in many projects where the data model makes no sense. You cannot see like a star schema here, many-to-many relationships between tables, the filtered direction is like everywhere, and that's all because people skip the data modeling step. They just connect the source systems to Power BI and jump immediately to the visuals, to the report dashboards. They just want to build fancy reports for the end users. But of course, after a while, once they start sharing the dashboards, the users can understand all the numbers makes no sense. They usually come back to this model and start fixing the data model in order to bring better numbers. So my friends, what I have done for the preparations, I brought all the scenarios from my project and built this nightmare dataset in order to cover all the scenarios that you might face in the projects. So our goal is to turn this into a healthy star schema, bring correct numbers, and as well as good performance. Okay, so now we're going to start with the phase number one, the preparation. That means first we have to have good understanding about the content of those tables. So what is the business? What are the entities? Which tables are good candidates for dimensions? Which are for facts? So basic understanding about what we have, and we don't have like to deep dive into each small detail, just to develop a feeling about the business, about the data. And after that, we're going to do like few setups in the Power Query as a preparation for the project. So now let's start. Let's understand what you have here. And I will not go through all the relationships because we're gonna break the data model, and anyway we have like to build the relationships again. So just basic understanding of the tables, and we're gonna do that by going to the table view. So we're gonna start from the top to the addresses. So what do you have here? We have an address ID, street, city name. So it's all about the geographic, the addresses, and maybe for the customers or something. So this is for the first table. Let's go to the second one, the campaign log. Okay, this one is a little bit bigger. So here we have the campaign name, the channel, start date, end date, a budget, impressions, click and spend. So it's all about our marketing campaign day by day. So this looks like an event, and this is really good candidate for a fact. So we have numbers, we have dates. Now let's go to the third one. We have the campaign SKUs. This one looks compacted. So we have the campaign name again, and for each campaign we have like a list. And I think those are the products that we have in the business. So that means this table shows us what are the products that were involved in the campaign. And of course, this is not easy one to consume because the list is usually bad for reporting. And we can see as well the column names are not correct, and we can find them in the first row inside our table. Of course, we have to clean those up. Now let's go to another table, the cities. So what do you have here? We have again the cities and as well the regions. So this is again a part of the informations about the geography, the locations, the addresses. This is of course a descriptive informations, and we're gonna need those stuff as the dimensions. Now let's go to the next one. We have the cost master. So it looks like this is our customer table. So we have customer ID, customer name, segments, the address ID. So this is the first connection to our addresses. Then we have like people, the account manager, payment terms, some hash keys and source IDs. Those stuff comes from the sources. But now look at this, the customer name is not actually like a person. They are companies. Like here, for example, we have the Atlas Industries. So that means this is a very important table for the customers, and our business is B2B. So that's all for this one. Let's go to the next one. We have the customer contacts. So what do we have here? We have again the customer ID, the contact name, the emails is primary. Now you can see for each customer, like for each company, we have multiple contacts, which makes sense, of course, because our customers are companies, and usually we have to to deal with multiple people in the same company. So this is all about who we took inside each company. Let's go to the next one. We have a dimension underscore order. So this one looks really garbage. We have only one column and no context to it. So we have some kind of IDs that actually we cannot relate to anything so far. So I think this is junk. This is something that we could drop. So we just faced our first garbage inside the data model. Let's go to the next one. We have the exchange rate. So what do we have here? We have the currency, the rate, and as well the date. So this is as well information about our business. Let's keep going to the inventory. So now what do we see here? We see the product names, and for each month we have like numbers. So this is all about the inventory. So that means how much stock we are holding month by month. And here we have like a whole year. So for each month we have one column. All right, let's move to the next one. We have the invoice lines. So here we have like an invoice line, an invoice ID, product, and amount. So that means we have invoices in our system, and those are the details about each invoice. And that brings us to the next table, the invoices. And here we see like the master table for the invoices. So we have the invoice ID, the order ID, the customer name, the invoice date, and the amount as well. So this looks an event, a good candidate for a fact table. So it is connecting to other things like the invoice ID, the order ID, the customer name to the customer table. We have a date and numbers. And if we need more details about the invoices, we have the other table that we just checked, the invoice lines. So we just spotted another fact. Now let's move to the next one. We have the order line items. So again, sounds similar to the invoices. We have the details about each order. So for each order, we have like lines, an order ID, and this time we are connecting to the product names. So finally, we see here the products, and then we have here some numbers like the quantity, the price, the costs, discount, and total sales. So those are the details for each line. Now we're gonna go to the orders. So we have here two orders where the orders are splitted by the years. So for 2025, we have here a lot of things. So here we have an order ID, a legacy reference, customer name, customer city, region. So again, we have like some repetitions inside our dataset. To which city we're gonna ship, to which city we're gonna bill. So we have here different cities. Then we have the date, the order channel, and a lot of columns in this table. So again, this looks like a big table for a fact because here we have an event. Each line is about an order, but as well at the same time, we have a lot of context inside this fact. So this is a gigantic one for the 2025, and I think that 2026 looks exactly the same. So they are just getting splitted. All right, so this is our third fact, I believe, but inside it we have a lot of dimensions that we could extract. Now let's go to the next one. We have the payments. So this one is a small one. We have the payment ID, the invoice ID, customer name, date, and amount. Again, looks like transactions, events. So this sounds like a fact table as well. And now to the next one, which is really important, the products. Finally, we have a dimension. So what do you have over here? We have the product code, the name, the brand, the subcategory, the price, and many other descriptions for the products. So this table holds the context for the business products, which is a classical one for a dimension. Let's go to the next one. We have the regions. Well, again, we have informations about the region, and as you can see, we are operating globally, North America, Europe, Asia. So our business is everywhere. Now let's go to the next one. We have the sales targets. So we have a row for each month and as well the target revenue. So it looks like someone planned the budget, the revenue for each month. And this is a classical use case where we're going to compare the target to the actual sales that we have in the transactions. So for sure, we're going to need this. Now let's go to the next one. We have the security. This is a really important one. So here we can see the user email and the region. So we can see each employee, which region they are responsible to. And of course, this is a perfect table that we're going to use in order to build the row level security. So we have to keep our eyes on it. Now let's go to the next one. We have the sheet 1. Weird name, right? I think this is like something wrong here. So we have the shipment ID, order ID, mode, ship date, delivery date. So all informations about the delivery. So we can see for each step how and when orders get out. Okay, interesting one, but we have to rename the table. Now let's go to the next one. We have the shipments. Well, those two tables are identical, and yes, I think the sheet 1 is an import problem, and this is a classical thing that happens inside the data model, that you have like two tables that are identical and you have to get rid one of them. So this is not really good. Now let's go to the subcategories. So very simple one. We have here like mapping between the category and the subcategory. Of course, this is going to help us in in order to organize our products later. Now let's go to the last table, the user details. So we can see here for each user, we have like credit limits and a phone number. Well, of course, this is confusing. Which user we are talking about? I think this is gonna be for the customers. If you go and check the customer master, well, yes, we have like the same patterns in the ID. So those are more details for the customers. So that means in the datasets, we are using like two names, sometimes users, sometimes like customers. Of course, we have to deal with that. All right, my friends. So that's it. We just visited all the tables. We developed like a feeling about the business. What are the entities? What are good candidates for dimensions? Of course, here the big dimension is going to be the customers and the products. And as well, we have a lot of events happening in the business. So we have a lot of facts. We have invoices, we have orders, we have payments, and as well, we have shipments. So a campaign. So a lot of events are happening in the business, and this is going to be really interesting on how to make a data model out of this and how to connect things together. So as you can see, my friends, this is a really important step. We have to get a feeling about the data before we change anything. The more you explore, the more you analyze, you build this understanding about the data, about the domain, and it's going to be easier for you later to understand the grain and how to build the dimensions and facts. The more you invest in this phase, the less errors and mistakes you're going to do in the data modeling. Now, of course, I have done this quickly because I have built these datasets, but I really recommend you to pause the video and go through them one by one, understand its contents. If you have done this already, now we're going to go and do a last step in this phase where we're going to prepare the Power Query, because we're going to work a lot with the Power Query in order to shape the data model. Not everything going to be like connected. We have sometimes to merge, append, and as well clear some quality issues. So now let's go to Power Query. As usual, we go to transform data. Now, of course, in this phase, we will not go now and transform or change any table. All what we want is to just organize it, because the thing is, as you start like building the data model, you will be creating new tables, references, and quickly the queries over here gonna go in chaos. So you will not remember which tables are the source table, which tables are the new one that you just created. So this is gonna get out of hand quickly, especially if you have like big model like this. Now, of course, there is like no best practices how to organize your projects, but I'm gonna show you how I usually do it. So everyone does it in their own way, on their own style, but this is how I like to do it. So I start by creating a new group. So new one, and we're gonna give it a name. So I like numbering the folders just to sort it on the left side. So the first one gonna be the stage. So the stage gonna be the folder that's gonna contain all the raw queries as it is from the source systems. So that means, my friends, all those queries that we see now on the left side gonna be inside this folder. So with that, I know, okay, all the raw stuff are living inside this folder. With that, we don't mix it with the new tables that we generate. So let's go and create it. Now you can see Power BI put everything under other queries, which is a good thing. Now I'm gonna go and select everything and drag and drop them on the new folder. So with this, my new folder, the stage, contains all the raw sources. So this is the first folder. We're gonna go and create another one, and we're gonna call it to dimensions. Now this is going to be an empty folder for now, because we're going to put inside it the new dimensions that we create from the stage, like the customers, the products, and so on. So that means if I want to go and do something for the dimensions, I go immediately inside this folder and I'm going to see it. Now usually after I build the dimensions, I'm going to go and build the facts. That's why the third one gonna be the fact folder. So same thing, any fact that I build from the stage, it's gonna land inside the folder facts. Of course, you can go and put them together, like maybe call it the data model, where the prefix is gonna decide for you whether it's fact or dimension. But I like to split it like this in order to have like a quick access. Now we're gonna go and create a last one. So a new group, we're gonna call this for support. Now in our data model, we're gonna have some tables that don't belong to dimensions and facts. Like for example, the security stuff, or maybe some like data that we insert. So anything that don't belong to dimensions and facts gonna go to this folder, the support. Now you might ask, okay, why do we have the support if we have like another folder called others, right? We could use it as well, but the other queries has different job. So in case we connected any new tables, any new sources to our data model, it's gonna land inside the other queries. They are like tables that are in my to-do list that I have to work on. So my friends, this is how I usually organize my Power Query in order to build the data model out of the raw tables. Now look at this, we have 23 tables inside the stage and nothing inside the other tables. Of course, as we progress in the project, we're going to take all those tables and put them inside the different folders. We have to grab all those stuff and start building the data model. Alright friends, so that's what for the phase one. We have now basic understanding about the content, the tables, and we have prepared our projects to start building. Finally, we're going to kick off the phase two, where we start building the dimensions. this is how we're gonna do it. So we're gonna have like a loop. We're gonna go through each dimension where we're gonna grab a group of tables that describes the same thing. So the same entity. So all tables that have the same context for something like a customer. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go and pull them together, reshape them into one clean dimension if it's possible. And we're gonna do whatever it takes. So we're gonna split, merge, append, fix, drop until we get the shape of a dimension. And of course, before we move on to the next one, we have to polish the dimension to make sure that we are following the standards that we agreed on the start. So the snake case names, the table names, the prefixes, the suffixes, everything. Once it is polished, then we go to the next dimension. So my friends, this is the whole loop. We pick tables, build, clean it to the standards, and then we move to the next one. But I'm gonna warn you, from now you might find yourself that you are repeating the same steps over and over for each dimension. And guess what? This is the part of the job. This is the nature of things, how we build data modules. And with each iterations, of course, you're gonna be faster. So now let's start building our dimensions.
Let's go build an airport.
Okay, so now let's start with the first dimension, and here we have to go and pick like one topic or entity. And I'm gonna start with the big elephant in the data model. We have the dimension customer. So we're gonna go and build it now. How are we gonna do it? We go and pick all the tables that are related to the customers and turn it into one dimension. So now based on what we have learned, we have a lot of tables, but obviously the biggest table that's gonna gives us context about the customers is the customer master. So now what I usually do is that in this scenario, since we have like a lot of chaos over here, it's like a puzzle game. I'm gonna go and grab all those tables that are related to the same topic and move them to one section in the model. So for example, here the table customer master, I'm gonna go and grab it over here just in order to get like feeling of progress over the time. Now what is the other table that actually gives us more context about the customers? We had the contacts. So it is over here, the customer contacts. And at the end we found like a table, the user details, where we get like phones and emails as well. This one gives us some context about the customers. Now there is a topic that actually could be relevant, in that the addresses. Each customer has an address. Of course, here the question is whether we make like an extra dimension for the addresses or we merge everything inside the customer. So I'm gonna say let's go and group them as well together with the customers. So this is the addresses over here. And for the addresses, we saw as well some other related tables for the locations. So we had like the cities, it is over here. And as well, we had the regions. So this could be as well interesting. So now by looking to this, we have like 3 tables about the customers and 3 tables about the addresses. So now I know, okay, on the top right, I have the dimension customers, and my goal is to go and turn all those tables into one single dimension. So as you can see, our data model is getting like maybe slowly less chaotic, but we are not there yet. We didn't start. So now in order to change the shape of the tables, of course, we have to go to the Power Query. Now in this scenario where we have a lot of tables, I usually start with the foundations, with the biggest table that's gonna gives us a lot of context about the customer, and the one table that, let's say, has a completeness, like has all the customer. And I'm gonna say this is very obvious, it's gonna be our customer master. Here we have a lot of columns about the customers, and this is very good starting point. So now before we do anything, we will not go and change now directly the shape of this table. We have to go and make a reference out of it so that I can work on a copy, let's say, and leave the raw data as it is. Maybe later we're gonna need as well this table for something else. That's why I usually go and say, okay, let's go and build a reference out of this. So we have it over here, and then drag and drop it to the dimensions. All right, so now let's minimize this. The next step, we have to go and rename it. And here we have to be really careful with our rules. So we said we have a prefix for each dimension called dim, and we are using the snake case. So everything should be lowered. Actually, that's it. This is our first dimension. Now let's have a look. What do we have here? We have a lot of context about the customers. And how many customers do we have? We have 61 customers, and this is really interesting. The last row is 999, and it sounds like a test customer. So this is like a dummy information that came from the source system, and I'm gonna say we have to get rid of it. So I'm gonna go and filter this data out, and we can do that very simply by going to the filter over here and search for the ID, and then all what you have to do is to just unmark it. That's it. So now by looking to this, we have 60 customers inside this table. This is the foundations. We have to keep this in our mind, because as we start adding more and more things to this table, we have to make sure that everything stay unique and we stay with the 60 customers. So now we have the foundations. Now let's go and look to the other tables. So we have the customer contacts over here. We have the ID, the name, the email, and is primary. So we have here more context about the customers. And of course, it makes sense to go and put those informations side by side with the other context. So with the the dimension customer. And how we do that, we go and merge the two tables. So it is very simple. We're going to go to the dimension customers and say, okay, let's merge the queries together. So dimension customer, and the next one, it's going to be the customer contacts. The ID going to be the customer ID, and the left join, make sure it is always left. If you use inner, you might lose data from the main dimension. We don't want that. So, okay, now we get it like a new column over here. We have to expand and select exactly what do we need. So we need the name, the email, and is primary. So with this, we got our 3 columns side by side with the other context. Now, it is very important. Once you merge new data inside your table, you have to make sure that everything stay correct. That means the data is not fanning out, or let's say getting duplicated. Now, if you go and check here, we had 60 customers, but now as I scroll down, we have way more than 60 customers, and that's because the same ID is keep repeating over and over. And of course, that's all because the new merge table that we have attached to this table. So that was a really bad merge between those two tables, and this is exactly what you have to be careful that merging is not destroying your dimension or maybe your facts. Now, of course, the question is, why did this happen? Because, my friends, we are merging two tables with different grains. So again, the customer contacts, each row doesn't represent one customer. Each row is representing one contact for the customer. So here, for example, for the second customer, we have 4 contacts. So the grain is different from the customer master. Here, each row is really representing only one customer. And once you merge different grains, you get this bad effect. So now, of course, the question is, how are we gonna solve this? Well, there is like different ways on how to do it. You can say, you know what, we can go and convert this table into the grain of customer. So that means each row represents one customer. And what do we do with the contacts? We make like a list of contacts. It's like we are grouping up, or let's say aggregating this table to the level of the customer. And of course, we can do that if you go to the transform and then group by the columns by the customer ID. Another solution that you might say, you know what, this is the contact of the customers, and we can make another dimension out of it and then make a relationship between this new dimension and the customer. Or a third solution that you might say, you know what, let's not go and add all the contacts inside the customer dimension. Let's just add the primary contacts. So for example, for the second customer, we have here like 4 people. Only one of them, Sarah, is actually the primary contact for this customer. And if that is okay for the analysis and the reports, then we can go and merge actually this table to the customers again. But of course, we have to make sure that we really have like one primary contact for each customer. We can do that by filtering the data, for example, over here, and say, show me only the primary contact. So of course, this dimension is very small. You can go and check like by eyes and see. With this, I have exactly 60 customers, and I don't have like any duplicates in the primary key. So now again, my grain over here is one row is one customer, and the relationship between the customer contacts and the dimension customer is again 1-to-1, and this is very safe in order to do a merge. So now, since we filter the data like this, let's go and check our dimension customer. Now let's see, again, we have here a clean dimension where we have only 60 customers, and on the right side, of course, we have our primary contact for each customer. So with this, finally it is safe to merge those two tables into one. Now of course, we are just checking by looking, right, whether there's duplicates or not. There is like smarter way on how to do it, is that you go to the primary key, the customer ID, and you group up the data by the rows. So you say here group by, and you just say okay, count, and here the operation gonna be count rows. So if you go and say okay, of course the data gonna get grouped up by the rows. And if you see it like this, where the count is everywhere is 1, then my friend, you don't have any duplicates and you are okay. Of course, you can go and check over here and you can see, okay, we have only one value, the 1. So this is something that I do each time I merge two tables together to check quickly whether we have duplicates or not. But of course, this is only for checking, so I'm gonna go and remove it. All right, so that was the first lesson. Be careful for the grains if you are merging things together. Now let's go and check the third table. We had the user details, right? Now again, we have more context to the dimension customer. We have the limits and the phone. That means we have to go and merge those informations to our new dimension. But this time we have to be careful. Do we have here the same grain? Well, by looking to this, I'm gonna say we don't have here any duplicates, each row representing one customer. So this one gonna be really easy. I'm gonna go to the table customers. Same thing. We're gonna go home and then merge, find our table. It was at the end. So user details. Now things here getting interesting about the entity. We have here the user ID, but in other table, they call it user ID. We have, of course, to talk about this because we have now like two different names for the same entity, right? But first, let's go and merge things together. And of course, we have to expand. So we just need the new informations, credit limit and the phone. And again, before we celebrate having more data inside our dimension, we have to go and check whether everything is unique and we don't have duplicates. So looks really good. Now, before we continue with the other tables and building the dimension, I still don't like it that we found out inside our data, we have like two names for the same entity. We had the customer and as well the user. So of course, what is the true? How are we gonna call this? Dimension customer or dimension user? This happens a lot, of course, by the way, in the companies where you have different departments calling the same entity different names. In one department, they call all the customers as users, another is customer. So of course, this is always a dilemma as you are building a data model, especially if you are connecting like multiple sources inside one model inside your project. Now, of course, one idea could be, let's go and ask the business users who are using the reports which name they want to use. Now, the thing is, if you are asking a business user from specific department, they might say, you know what, we use customers, then I want to see it in the report as well as customers. But if you go and ask another department, another business, they might say use the user. So still it is dilemma and they will not really help you in order to decide for your data model. You cannot go and use both of them. That's why you have to have like feeling about the data model. If you have a lot of tables are using the customer as an info, then go with the customer. Like here in our example, most of our tables are using this term customer and only like one table is using the user. That's why I'm gonna decide for our data model to go with the customer as an entity name and let's say ignore the user as a term. So now let's go back. So that means we're gonna stick with the name dimension customer. We will not rename anything. Now let's go back to the other three tables. Now the next batch of tables, they are all to do with the addresses. Look at this. We have here the address ID. And now here, my friend, you have two options. Either you're gonna go and build a new dimension called addresses and then connect it to the dimension customer. And with that, you are actually building, remember, the snowflake schema, one dimension connect and branch to another dimension, or we're gonna stick with our goal where we are building the star schema. So we always try to fit everything together into one dimension, and only in extreme cases, we might go and branch. So of course, I'm gonna stick with the goal. We are building star schema. That means all the address information is gonna go inside the dimension customer. And don't worry, we can always go and split if things goes wrong. So that means we have now to go and merge more and more things to the dimension customer. And I would like to show you one trick that I usually use in order to feel safe before merging things together. Yes, you can go and count things after merging, but usually I go to the module layer. So first save, yeah, okay, close and apply before going to the model view. Now look at this. This is our new dimension that we are actually building all the time. And you can see that Power BI is always trying to connect a new table to the whole data model. Of course, we have to remove all those stuff and start from scratch, but don't worry about it now. Now, the thing is, if I have like a new table that I would like to merge it to the table customers, I go and check the cardinality. Like for example, we want to merge the addresses with the dimension customer, right? Now you can see we have already like a relationship between those two. Now, if I see the cardinality is 1-to-1 relationship between those two tables, then this is really safe to merge those two tables together because Power BI automatically check the values inside those two tables and detect the cardinality. And of course, this is a great indicator for me to say nothing gonna go wrong if I go and like merge those two tables together. So this is a good thing. And by the way, about the cardinality, if the relationship is 1-to-many, so from the addresses is 1 and in the dimension customer is many, it is still safe. So there's another way to check before, let's say, merging two tables together. Let's go back to Power Query. So now same thing. Let's go to the dimension customer. We're gonna go and merge. And here we're gonna search for the addresses. This time the ID gonna be the address ID. As well here, address ID, always left join, never inner join. If you have one missing address, then you are removing a whole customer. So this is not safe. We always use left join. And same things, we're gonna go and expand. We just need the street and the city name. So look at this, looks nice. Now, of course, we have to go and test. So do we have 60 customers? Well, yes. So merging the addresses didn't cause any harm, any issues. Now, what else do we have? We have the cities, right? So let's go over here. Now, what do we have here? We have the city name and the region name, but here we have a quality issue. You can see that the first row is actually the column names and not the column 1 and column 2. Now, in order to fix this, this is very simple. We have here in the ribbon, use first row as headers. So Power BI are going to go and promote the first header as the column name for the table. So this is very simple. Look at this. We have now the city name and the region name. Now again, what we're going to do, we're going to go and merge this inside our dimension customer. Again, as I told you, you can go and check whether we have a one relationship at this table. So we have it over here, the cities. Let's go and grab it. I'm going to go and remove this relationship and then try to connect it to the dimension customer. This is of course only for test. So I'm going to take the city name to the city name. All right, look at this one-to-many relationship. So at the side of the cities, we have one. So I'm going to get good feeling about it in order to merge those two tables together. We don't have many. This will not duplicate my customers. So that means we're going to go back to transform data. So again, we merge. And as you can see, I'm merging all the time and I will keep doing that. So let's go and connect our cities. So city name, and the city name is somewhere over here. So let's go and connect, left join. Now what do we need from this table is actually only the region name. We have already the city name. So we actually don't need it twice inside our dimension. And we're going to go and check. We have 60 customers. All right. Now to the last table, we have the regions. Well, here we have only one column. We don't have like a lot of context that's going to help us for the dimension customer. And the region information, we have it already. So it makes no sense to merge this table to the dimension customers. This information is already in our dimension. So as you can see, we have here the regions. So actually, this makes no sense to merge inside our dimension customer. It will not add any value or add any context. And this is of course one of the things that happens all the time inside the data models. You're going to find the same piece of information multiple times in multiple tables. So the region exists here and as well in the cities and maybe in another table that we didn't discover yet. So here we have to be very careful. We are not like repeating the same data over and over. Otherwise, we are confusing the data model. So my friends, we went through the 6 tables and we have now one gigantic table that holds all the context about the customers. So that was a big step. We have combined now 6 tables into one dimension customers, but we are not done yet. We will not go to the second dimension until we do my favorite step. We have to do the housekeeping. So we have to clean up, organize, and make sure that we are following the standards. So we polish everything in order to make the dimension is ready to get used in the data model. So let's do that. All right, so now the first step that we have to do is that we have to get rid of unnecessary informations, unnecessary columns inside the dimension. Remember the rule, for each data should earn its place. So that means if there is something unnecessary, we have to remove it. Otherwise, it's gonna take space. It's gonna lead to bad performance and as well, it's gonna lead to confusion as you start building the reports. So that means, my friends, now we're gonna go through all the columns inside our new dimension and think about it. Should we leave it or should we drop it? So the customer ID, for sure, it's gonna stay. The customer name, the segments, all those informations are important for filtering and slicing and building visuals. Now to the address ID, well, my friends, I believe we don't need it. I can't imagine that this is going to be necessary for reporting, only for connecting things, and we have decided to put everything together into one dimension. We are not making Snowflake, that's why I'm going to go and drop it. So remove the account manager, okay, the payment terms gonna stay. Now the hash keys. Well, my friends, those stuff comes from the source system, and I will never imagine that we're going to need this for reporting. That's why we're going to go and remove. By the way, this takes a lot of space inside the data model. I remember in one project, we had like for each table, one hash key, where the refresh time for the data model was really horrible. It took a lot of time, and all because those hash keys, they are string values and they are really big. And if you have millions of rows, imagine how much space this takes. So the fix was very simple, to just go and drop all those hash keys. And suddenly we saved around, I think, 20% of the data set. So now let's go and remove the hash key. Then we have source ID. This is as well some garbage from the source system. We would never use this. Now here we have the primary contacts. Okay, we have their email. Now, whether it is primary, well, this is gonna be always true, right? We use this as a filter. So that means actually this is like totally useless information and we would never use this. So let's go and remove it. Credit limits gonna stay, the phone, the street, the city name, and the region. So not that bad, right? We just dropped like around 4 columns. All right, so this is the first step that we're gonna do in order to clean up our dimension. Now comes the naming convention. As you can see, we are not following the standards. Only the table name is actually using the camel case, but all the columns are actually following another case. This we call it the Pascal case, where we don't have any separations and the first letter is capitalized. Now, of course, since we have committed to the snake case, we have to go and rename all the columns. Or you can say, you know what, since everything is like Pascal case, I'm gonna go and change the rules, but of course you have to stick to it, and we're gonna follow the Pascal case. Well, this is something that you decide, but I have decided for the snake case, and I'm gonna go and now rename everything to the standards. But of course, I'm gonna speed up, so I'll just do it for the first column for you. So this is gonna be the customer underscore ID, and this is gonna be customer name, right? Like this. So now, see you soon. Alright, so now to the last column, as you can see here, we have the cities dot region name. We don't need the cities dot because this is just comes from the original table, the cities. We're just gonna go and call it region. That's it. So I'm gonna say everything is clean inside our dimensions. The names are friendly, so the table name, the column names, and as well the values inside the table. This is really important. If you see something cryptical, technical, we have to do something about it. But now I'm gonna say our dimension customer is ready to use. But now, of course, before we close and go to the second dimension, we have the last step where we're gonna go and hide all the original tables so that we don't see them anymore inside the model. So we're gonna go through them one by one. The addresses, we don't need it anymore, so we'll deactivate the enable load. So yes, same thing for the customer master, so we have to do the whole thing for all 6 tables. The cities, so deactivated. The contract as well here. The regions, well, actually we didn't merge it, but we don't need it. We have this information already in the dimension customer. And the last one, the user details, so right click and disable. Okay, so with this we have consolidated a lot of things into one dimension. Let's go and close and apply. Well, look at this, everything gone, and I have only the dimension customer. Now I'm gonna go and clean up those relationships. I don't need them. So remove, and last remove. So now comes the most satisfying thing that I'm gonna do. We're gonna zoom out and look at this. Our data model gets reduced a little bit, and now we have here one good solid dimension. So my friends, this is the first dimension, and I'm gonna say this is the biggest dimension that we have inside this raw data model. We have, of course, to keep iterating on this, and the next big dimension, of course, in our business, the products. And now again, the same iteration. We start by collecting all the tables that has to do with the products. We had very big table called products where we have a lot of context about it. So I'm going to drag it over here. And the second table that actually has to do with the products, that was the subcategories. I don't find it. Well, yeah, it's over here. So this one gonna organize the products. And I think by looking to this, actually that's it. So we have only 2 tables to do with the products. We're gonna go and try to merge everything into a new dimension called dem product. So let's go and do that. We're gonna go again to the Power Query. All right, so now our 2 tables are again the products and the subcategories. Now, of course, we have to start one of them as the foundations. It's gonna be the products, of course, because here we have a lot of context. This is the master table for our dimension. So as usual, so what you're gonna do, same thing, we're gonna go and create a reference out of it, drag and drop it to the dimensions. We just make this smaller, and we're gonna go and rename it. Same thing, the prefix is dimension and the name is products. Okay, so now let's have a quick look to our dimension products. As you can see, we have a lot of columns describing, and as well we have a lot of things that we're gonna clean up at the end. But of course we have to understand how many products do we have. Well, same thing, we have 60 products, and the last one we have as well a dummy data. So it says don't use test blah blah blah, so that means this is something from the source. We're gonna go and remove it quickly, so uncheck it. And the other thing, that's let's make sure that we don't have duplicate inside the products, so we can do a quick group by, so count rows. Okay, now we check this, do we have any 2s? Well, only 1, so this is clean. We don't have any duplicates inside our products. But now you might notice that we don't have actually a product ID. We have a product code. So that means the source table is not providing like a unique identifier in order to connect it to the data model. It is using the code as like a business key. This is of course a tricky thing. So now we will not clean anything yet. Let's go and check the subcategories. So the subcategories is over here. Now the first issue is that we don't have the column name. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna use the first row as headers. And the second issue, actually here we are merging 2 informations in one column. We have the category and the subcategory side by side, and they are separated with a pipe. Now, of course, we have the subcategories already in the dimension products. So we have it over here, but what is missing, which is very important, is the category. So that means we need the category in order to add more context to this dimension, and we have somehow to grab it from this column. Now, of course, we cannot go and merge this directly to the products because we don't have keys. The keys are actually like piece of information inside each value. That's why we have to go and split this into two columns, one category and another one subcategory. So let's go and do that. So here we have a nice function called split columns by delimiter. So here Power BI get it correctly. We are splitting by custom and the separator is the pipe. So actually everything is ready. Let's go and hit OK. Look at this. Now we have the categories and the subcategories. I'm gonna go and rename things because here it says 1 and 2. Power BI has no idea about the content. So this is gonna be the category and the other one gonna be the subcategory. Now we are not there yet because if you look at this, you see that all the subcategories, all the values are lowercase. But if you check our dimension over here, you see the key is not ready yet. We have it capitalized. So the first letter is actually an uppercase and this will not work. So if I go and merge now things together, Power BI will not find any match. So as you can see, we have always like to prepare the data before merging. The keys must work. Otherwise, you're going to get only nulls after merging. So now either we're going to make this lowercase or we go over there and we make the key as a capitalized. I'm going to change it over here. In the reports, it looks way nicer if you have things capitalized. So how are we going to do it? We're going to go to transform and here we have a nice function called capitalize each word. So let's do it. Now our key is ready for the merge. So everything now is simple. We're going to go to the dimension products. As usual, we merge, we go and pick our table. So it is the subcategories over here. And now all what we have to do is to just select things. So subcategory with the subcategory and left join. So let's go and set OK. All right, we have it here as a table. We have to expand. Well, we don't need the subcategory. We have it already. We just need the category. So okay, now it is working. As you can see, we have now the categories inside our table. All right, so now with this, I'm going to say that our dimension now hold all the context about the products in one table. We don't have anything else from the other tables. Now we're going to come back to this topic where I said we don't have like an ID from the source system. We just have like a code and a name. So it's not like the dimension customer. We had here like an ID. Now here we have like two options. Either we're going to leave it as it is, or we're going to go and create a surrogate key, something that we create inside the model, not from the business. And we're going to use this ID in order to connect it to the facts in the future. So I'm going to say for now, I'm going to go and add it. So we're going to go and add column and we just go and add an index column and we start from 1. So we have it over here. I'm going to go and rename it. So this is going to be not the product ID. This is going to be the product underscore key. We agreed in the rules, if we are creating any keys from us, we always have the suffix underscore key for it, so that I know which IDs come from the source and which one that I created. So it looks like this, and we have like 60 products. Now I'm gonna say we are done with merging and creating things. Let's go to the last step where we start like cleaning up and bringing standards to this dimension. So that means again, we're gonna go through all the columns one by one and say whether they're gonna stay or leave. So the code, of course, gonna stay, the name, the brand, the subcategory, the prices, the supplier. We could use it for slicer. Now comes something that I saw a lot in data models where people just leave such information here. So those are the big text, the descriptions. Now this is of course a huge text. It is describing each product. And of course we have to ask ourselves, do we really gonna go and use such a description inside our reports? In most cases, no. We are not building like an operative system. We are not building an interface in order to show the descriptions of the products. We are building analytics and reports, and in most cases we don't go and use product descriptions and long text in the visuals. But of course, on the other hand, I saw a lot of people that are using Power BI in order to build some kind of application, let's say, to see all the data. Well, there is like some projects that are misusing Power BI in order to build interfaces, but not BI, right? So in most cases, I refuse to have such informations inside the data model. That means we go and drop it. So remove. Now same thing, we have here hash key, the source ID. All those informations came as garbage, let's say, from the source system, and we don't need it here. Of course, they are maybe very important informations in the source systems, but here we don't need it. So let's go and remove it. Now here we have our category and the product ID. Now before we start like renaming everything, I would like to go and sort the columns. So I would like to see the product key at the start as like primary key. And the category, I would like to have it side by side with the subcategory. Well, I'm gonna say subcategory and then category. So with that, like we have a hierarchy, right? The product, then subcategory, and then category. I like to have things ordered so it makes sense as you are building visuals and reports. And now I'm gonna say we have all useful informations and we can go now and start renaming things. Again, I'm gonna do it now offline in order not to waste time. So see you soon. Alright, so this is the last column, and with that we are following now the same naming convention. Sometimes I remove few things, like for example the subcategory name. I call it now subcategory, so there is no need for the name inside the column name. Now there is one more thing. By looking to the values, you can see that the subcategory is actually capitalized. Same thing for the product name, only the category is everything here lowercase. And this of course because it comes from another table where everything is lowercase. So now in order to bring standards to the values, I'm gonna go and apply the same function. So transform and capitalize each word. So now things looks like more harmonized, everything capitalized, and maybe we can add it as a rule inside our project where we say all the text values inside our data model is capitalized, so that people, once they start building reports, they don't have to go back to the data model and start like adding more functions and transformations. All right, so now we have really nice dimension as well. The last step that we're gonna do, we'll just go and deactivate the row tables. So the products, we will go and deactivate it. Yes, same thing for the subcategory as well, it is deactivated. All right, so we are done. Let's go and make sure that we save and apply. All right, now this is our new dimension over here. Let me just zoom in. We're gonna go and remove the relationships, we don't need them. And for this as well. So now look at this. Now we have clean two dimensions are waiting here on the side, and our original data model is getting cleaned up step by step. Okay, so now what is next? What we're gonna do? Do we have like a third dimension that we're gonna go and build? Of course, there will be a lot of dimensions, but here we have like something that we have to decide on. Now, the product and the customers, they were like standalone and very obvious dimensions where we had like a master table for them. So we have like table product and another table called the customer master. So that's why it was really easy to make those dimensions out of those row tables. But now the thing is, in all other tables that are remaining in the data model, most of them are events. So we don't have like a master table for the third dimension actually. Most of the dimensions gonna get like extracted out of the event. As we said before, in many facts, there are always like hidden sneaky dimensions that we extract out of it. This is exactly now the scenario. Because of this, now we have like two ways on how to continue. Either you're gonna go through all the events one by one and start like extracting all the dimensions. And once you are done, once you have all the dimensions, then you start building the facts. Or the other way that I prefer, that at the same time we take like one event table and we split it into fact and dimensions. So at the same time we are building the fact and the dimensions out of the row tables, and we don't have like to rediscuss it and brainstorm it again. So either you go all the way by extracting all the dimensions and only after that you build the facts, or at the same time you are building the dimensions and facts. Well, I tend to the second option. So now let's go and do that. All right, so now by looking back to our data model, we have actually a lot of events. So we have the orders and sales, we have the invoices, the payments, the campaigns, and of course it's gonna be really hard to think of everything at the same time. That's why we have to go and pick one event, go deep inside it and start splitting it into facts and dimensions. So that means we have to go and pick an event. I'm gonna say we're gonna start with the orders and sales. This is the most important one, and I think this is a little bit complicated. So now let's go and collect all the related tables like we have done in the dimensions together in one place. So we have the orders 2026, and as well we have the same table for the 2025. What else do we have? We have as well the lines for the orders. So this one over here, the sales target is gonna be the budget. So I'm gonna say it's not really same event, it is like the planned budget for each month. We're gonna think about it, maybe we're gonna consider it. So I'm gonna say this is more than enough. We have a lot of things. We have the orders and the lines, and here we have to have full focus because we start talking about facts. Facts are very sensitive topic. So again, we're gonna go to the Power Query. Let's go inside. Now the first thing before we start touching anything, let's have some understanding more about our tables. So let's start with those two orders, so 2025 and 2026. Now again, I'm gonna ask the question of the grain. What each row is representing? Well, you can see over here, each row is actually one complete order. So we have all the informations about the orders. We have the customer name, city, region. Looks like a dimension, right? But of course, we have here the events, the order date, the channel of the order, the status, priority, total sales for the order, and some big notes. robots. Now let's go to the other table, the orders 2025. This is very identical table. So actually here we have a split from the source system. Here as well we have the same grain. Each row is actually one order, but again the source system is splitting the data maybe for some reasons like archive and so on. And of course we have to do something about it. We cannot leave it splitted like this. It just confused the data model. Now let's go to the third one, the order line items. So now again the same question, what each row here is representing? Well, I'm gonna say each row is actually a line of order. So one line is not the whole order like we had it in the other tables. It is one position about the order. And of course we can go and check that by aggregating the order ID. So let's just group by and say, okay, this is the count of rows. Well, by looking to this, you can see here we have a lot of duplicates. That means for each order, we might have like multiple lines. Like here for the first order, we have 3 lines. All right, so I will just go and remove it. We are just testing here. So that means this has like more details, another grain than the orders. Now, my friends, here we have like a very classical scenario with the order lines and the orders. This is something that we call from the transactional systems, from the sources, the headers and the details. All right, friends, now I can say we come to the most complicated and confusing part in the whole data modeling project. That's why if you don't have coffee yet, go and grab one. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about the header and the details. This is very tricky and confusing part where a lot of people make mistakes in the data modeling for reporting and analytics, but yet one of the best practices and the common way on how to store transactions in OLTP sources. So it is a very common way on how to module the sources, and you're gonna find it a lot in many companies. So my friends, if you understand this concept and you know how to deal with it in the data modeling for business intelligence and analytics, then my friends, your life gonna be really easy working at companies because you're gonna face this data model over and over. So now, in order to understand this, let's start with a very simple example. I don't know, look around you, maybe you find an order or an invoice.
I found it!
If not, go and check online your stuff. So now here I have an order, and if I look at this is one business event. I have done an order, and this business event actually has like 2 sections, a header and details. The header, it is like the top level informations in the order. Like for example, I have the address, the customer, the company, the order number, the order state, the order date. So all those informations, we have it like only once for each order, right? And those are, my friends, the header. Now, if you look below it, depends if you ordered multiple things, you're gonna find like a table with more details. Like for example, you're gonna find the list of all products that you have ordered in this one order, and other things like the quantity, the price, and as well the final costs. And my friends, this setup, the header and the details, you're gonna find it in many events in many companies. So you're gonna find it in orders, in invoices, in shipment, in delivery, even in manufacturing. You're gonna have the bill of materials, the production order, or if you have like ticketing system, you're gonna find it as well in tickets. All those transactions, and many systems gonna store those informations into header and details. Now, of course, the big question is how are we gonna deal with those stuff inside our data model for business intelligence? Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people do is that they look at the header and details as two different things. So they say, okay, the header looks like a fact, so they go and make like, for example, fact orders, and they see, okay, the details as well looks as fact, but this is like different grains. That's why they're gonna go and make another fact for that, the fact order line. So they make out of this like two facts. And now, of course, in reporting, you're gonna need those two tables in one visual, in one report. So that means they need two data from the facts. And here people come in this trap where they're gonna say, okay, well, actually we have the order key in the header and the details. This is actually what happens in transactional systems. They link the order with the header using the key. And they're gonna say, okay, this is a perfect match. This is the common column. I'm gonna go and connect those two facts together. Well, yes, this might work, but this is gonna introduce only issues in the reporting. This has, first of all, bad performance, can lead to bad numbers, and as well, this is very confusing once you are building the reports. So this is one of the biggest mistakes that people do in data modeling. And now, of course, the question is, how are we gonna do it? How are we gonna module this? Well, the rule is always the same. The fact table gonna sit always at the level of things that you are measuring. So ask yourself where the numbers come from. So if you look to the header and the details, you're gonna see that actually all the numbers are stored in the details. The header is just like giving us some context and maybe like maximum 1 or 2 numbers, but the core numbers, the core measures are in the details. So that means it is always better to build a fact table that comes from the finest details, from the lowest level, because my friend, we can always roll up and aggregate the data back to the header. So that means in most cases, we're gonna go and create the core fact table from the details, and we're gonna use the header in order to get more context for our new facts. So either we're gonna use it in order to generate new dimensions from the header, or we're gonna use it as well to connect the data model to our new fact from the details. So this is the very common pattern. We make fact from the details, and we use the help of the headers in order to generate dimensions and to connect it to our fact. And I can say this can work like 90% of the time. Sometimes you have some edge cases where people are storing a lot of numbers in the headers, but in most cases this is gonna work if you follow this pattern. Okay, so now with this I have prepared you with the foundations. Now let's go to Power BI and try this out. Alright, so now what we're gonna do with those 3 tables, I'm gonna say let's start with the easy and obvious thing. We have to go and combine those 2 orders into one single table. So again, if you have 2 tables have the same grain, and as well they are identical, they have the same shape, we go and append them. So how we're gonna do it, it's gonna be very simple. We're gonna go over here and say append queries, and I'm gonna go and create a new one. So with that we don't lose, let's say, the row tables. So now here it says 2 tables, and the first table I'm gonna start with the oldest. So first 2025 and then 2026. Alright, let's hit OK. So now we have a new table over here. Let's go and rename it. So this is gonna be the orders. Now of course this is gonna be like an intermediate table. We don't have like fact and dimension. We are just like merging things. Of course, if you want, you can go and make another order for all the temporary things, but I'm gonna leave it now in the stage. Now of course we are not done. Let's have a look to the append, whether we have any strange things. Here we have some nulls, and if I go over here, the source file has as well some nulls. So actually there is like something wrong, and as well the legacy reference. So that means that they are not completely identical. Let's have a look again. We have here the legacy reference, and in 2026 we don't have it. So actually with the new orders we don't have this legacy column. So let's go and remove it. It says as well legacy, so I think we don't need it for reporting. And let's go and check the resource file. So over here we have it in 2025, but we don't have it, I think, for 2026. So again, it is a legacy thing. We go and remove it from our new table. So you go out, remove. Now here we have a lot of nulls. The gift message, if I go over here, you can see actually we don't have any value. This is garbage column, so it is just taking space. Let's go and remove it as well. So as you can see, we are cleaning up, and since we are talking about cleaning, we have here the order notes as well. Those big text, come on, we don't need those stuff in analytics and reporting, so I'm gonna go and remove it as well. So I think now we have like complete match between those 2 tables. We don't have any more nulls, so they are completely identical. Now, of course you might say, but we lost an information which record come from which table. So the 2025 and 2026. Well, actually we don't need this information. We have it already in the order dates. So it will be just like an extra information that we have already. But if it was like another information like the country or something, I would go and add the source. All right, so now again, our orders is the header information. As you can see, we have here a lot of context for each order. So very good candidates for dimensions. And the order line items, here we have all the numbers. So this is the detailed table for the orders. And this means, my friends, this is gonna be our core fact table for the topic sales and orders. So now where we're gonna start, either we create the fact table now, or we start extracting the dimensions from the orders. I'm gonna say, let's go to the orders and start like creating new dimensions. So what do we have here? We have the customer name, the customer city. Well, we don't create now another dimension called customers, so we're gonna leave it like here. Same thing for the region. Those cities gonna stay over here, the date as well. Now here we have something interesting. We have the order channel where we have like some numbers. Those are technical IDs. They are not something that we're gonna use in order to aggregate. We have as well status and priority. Those 3 informations are actually good candidates for dimensions because we can use them in order like to filter and slice. Now, of course, the question is, what is the topic? Are they like related to each other? Could we make like one dimensions out of this? Well, they are actually not related to each other. As you can see here, the order channel, the status, the priority, they are just like informations for the order, but they are not like connected together in order to make like good dimension. And of course, we will not go and make like one dimensions for each column. This is not good. In this scenario, what we're gonna do, my friends, we're gonna build the junk dimension. We're gonna put them all together in one and then reference it back in the fact table later. So how are we gonna build a junk dimension? dimension. We're gonna go and make another reference out of this. So we're gonna say reference, and this is gonna be a dimension. So I'm gonna drag and drop it to the dimensions. Let me just minimize this. All right, so right click on it, rename. Well, I'm not gonna call it again junk. So this is going to be the order flags. Maybe you're going to have another junk from another event. That's why we will not make it like super generic. Now, how we build this, it's very simple. We're going to go and remove all the unnecessary stuff and say, okay, remove. We don't need the order total. This is a number. We don't need it for dimension. Now, the last step, what we're going to do, we're going to go and remove all the duplicates from all three. So select all and say remove duplicates. Very nice. We have only 14 rows. Now, of course, what is missing? We need like a key for this dimension. So we're going to go and add a column, an index column that starts from 1. Then we're going to call it, so rename the flag key, because this is a surrogate key. We just created this in our model and go to the top. Okay, so this looks already good. Now we are not done yet. There is something that I really don't like, those order channels. So as you can see, those numbers. Now this is gonna confuse a lot if you just bring it to the reporting. People might go and aggregate or find an average of this. Those are ID for something that we don't know. And we cannot leave it like this. We have to make something meaningful of this. So now at work, in order to understand what those numbers are, we actually go and read documentations or ask the people responsible for the source system, maybe ask an expert from the business or from the processes. So at the end, you have to find the mapping between those numbers and the real values so that we can show it in the reports. Now, let's say that I got it from somewhere, those informations. Now the question is, how we can add it to this data model? Because those informations are not coming from the source. From the source, we are getting only those IDs. So that means this is new information that I'm adding to this data model and it doesn't exist from the sources. And how we can do that? My friends, we go and add a data inside our data model by going to the home repo and say enter data. So this is going to be very simple. We are just creating a table from scratch like an Excel. So the first column is going to be the channel code, and we need another one where we have the full name. So the channel name. Okay. So it is just like mapping between code and the name. So we make sure that we cover everything from our data. We have the 10, and this stands for online store. Then we have 20. This is the retail partner. Then the 30. This is the channel of wholesale, and 40 is a field sale. So we make sure that we have covered everything. So we have here actually only 4. Okay, so this is the translation, the mapping between the cryptical code and the friendly name. All right, so now let's go and hit OK. Well, now I have it here as a table, so I'm going to go and rename it channels, and then maybe bring it back to the stage because this is something like intermediate, right? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to our order flags, and we have to replace those numbers with the new values, and we can do that by merging queries. So let's go and find our new table, channels. All right, so this is the key, and left join. So let's hit OK. All right, okay, so let's go and expand, remove the code. We just need the name, and I'm going to move it over here. Of course, you can now decide whether you're going to leave the code together with the name, but I'm going to say, actually, the codes are just like confusing. So I'm going to go and remove it. So now, my friends, this is what we call data enhancement, data enrichment. And this is very typical things that we do in data modeling, because in source systems, we're going to get a lot of cryptical things that we cannot just go and present it in the reports. So we have to add from our side something new to the data model, and with this comes a really great responsibility, because this is very typical. What could happen is that initially you're gonna go and start mapping everything manually, so everything looks perfect, but now suddenly the source systems are generating, let's say, new IDs, new values that we didn't map yet. So a typical problem happens that initially we do things correct, but afterward we forget about it, or maybe we just go and switch to another project, and your report's gonna show only nulls over the time because we don't have values for that. So adding data manually from us, the humans, to the data model, it is something critical and we have to be careful for it. So if you go to another project and you hand this data model to someone else, make sure to inform them that they have to check from the source systems. If there is something new, they have to go and extend this manual data that we added to the data model. Or what is way better and perfect, if you say, you know what, this mapping should happen in the source system and you are responsible for it, and provide it with all other files. This is of course the best option, because then we don't have any more the responsibility to touch the data inside the data model. Everything gonna be like fully automated. Okay, so now back to our junk dimension. The last step is just to polish. So that means we will just rename things, the channel, and here we have a status, so only the S, and the priority. Okay, so our junk dimension is ready to go. Now let's go back to our orders. Let's see. Okay, again, we say those information is gonna stay, and that means we just extracted one dimension out of the order, which is totally okay. Now, let's start with our fact. This is gonna be really interesting. Let's go to the order line. This has the lowest details. It makes sense. So let's go first and make a reference out of it. This is gonna be our first fact inside the data model. Let me just minimize all those stuff, and then let's go and give it a name. I'm gonna call it the fact sales. Alright, so this is the foundations for our fact. We have enough numbers inside it. But now the thing is, we need the dimensions. So we have already here the product name, but we need the customers, we need the junk dimension, we need the order date. So we need all those stuff from the header to be included as well in our new facts. So that means now we're gonna start like combining things to our new fact. And here you have to be very, very careful. If you do one wrong merge, you're gonna destroy the whole facts. So now we come to the rule that we have to protect our numbers. So that means any changes that we do to the fact table, we still have to see the same numbers. And if we see something else, we have of course to fix before merging it to our facts. So now let's try this out, and I'm going to show you how I usually do it. Now, of course, I will not go and start like scrolling down because usually the event tables are really big. So instead, I'm going to go and close and apply. So just save it. All right. So I think somewhere is our new fact, but we don't deal now with the data model. Let's go to the report view. And now we're going to go and pick like one important measure from our fact in order to keep tracking it for each change. So if I go to the fact sales over here, we have here some options like, for example, the line total, the quantity, the cost, the price. I'm going to go with the main measure. This is going to be the line total. So let's drag and drop it to our card. So my friends, this is the number and we have to protect this. Anything that we combine, we add to this fact table, it always should result exactly to this same number. If something changed, then we have an issue. So we have to know this number by heart until the end of the project. This number should be correct. Okay, so now we have the number. Now let's go back to Power Query and start adding things. So back to the fact sales. Now what we're going to do in order to bring the other dimensions to our facts, we're going to go and add the header. So we do that by doing a merge query. We're going to go to the orders that we have prepared. It is over here. And how we're going to combine it by the order ID. And of course, very important, the left outer join. Okay. Now, of course, we have to expand. And here we have a lot of things. I will not now judge everything. I'm just going to go and remove the order ID that we just used because we have it already. And let's go and add all the things. We can always remove later. So now we have everything from the header, the order. And of course, now the big question is, do we have any changes for the numbers? So let's go and close and apply and wait a second until it's loaded. So keep focusing on the number. Any changes? Well, nothing changed. This is perfect. We still have the total sales. Of course, there are like different methods on how to test. Like for example, you can go and build a relationship between them and see whether it is one to many. So you can do like different ways of testing before merging. This is one of them. So that was successful. Now let's go back to the Power Query. Let's go back to the fact sales. Okay, so with this we have done the big merge between the details and the sales safely. And now we can go to the next steps. Like for example, we have to go and build the keys inside the fact. You know, each fact has a lot of keys in order to connect things to the dimensions. And our fact is not ready yet. So now instead of having the product names, we're going to go and have the product key. Same thing for the customer. So let's do that. Let's bring the IDs and the keys and we can start with the customer. Now what we're going to do, we call it something like lookup. So that means I'm going to go and merge this to the dimension only to get the IDs. And again, since we are merging, we have to be very careful. So we're going to go and merge a query again, but this time we are merging with the dimensions. So we're going to go over here and find the dimension customer. So now this is our target to get the customer ID, but of course we cannot now connect using IDs. We have to do something scary. We're going to go and use the text, the customer name. And this can open the door for many mistakes. So we have to really check after that. So customer name, left join. This is, my friends, a lookup. So let's go and hit OK. Now what we're going to do, how we're going to expand. Of course, we will not go and bring now all the columns from the dimension. We just want one thing, the customer ID. So this one we need and hit OK. So now what I like to do next is to just bring the ID on the starts so that we have a real fact table. So it's going to be somewhere here. Now, of course, before we do anything else, we have to go and test. So I'm going to go and close and apply and keep my eye on this number. Well, nothing changed. That was a successful merge between those two tables and there is no risk about it. Now let's go and do the same thing for the products. So let's go back to the fact sales. Same thing. We have here the product name. We need the product ID or key. So merge, and now same thing. We're gonna go to that dimension product over here. We join my friends using the product name. So it's not the product code, which is really scary. So let's go and hit OK. And we just need a lookup. So that means we need the product key. Perfect. Now let's go as well, bring it to the start side by side with the other keys somewhere here. Now, before we touch anything, we have to go and test. Let's close and apply. Keep our eye on the numbers. Did the numbers just changed? Now we have way more total sales than before. Oh no, that was not successful merge with the products. We have something wrong and we have to protect the original number. So yeah, we have to do something. So let's go back to Power Query and see what is going on. So let's go back to the fact sales. Well, what we can do, we can go and check up actually which order have an issue. So if you select those two and say, okay, let's go and group by, I imagine those two should be unique. So let's go and count the rows for that. So now we see a lot of ones, but we see two, right? So here we have an issue. You can see those orders are fanning out. So we are getting like duplicates. And let's go and check something like, for example, the order number 25, and then go and remove this test. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go and search for this order. It was the 25. All right, look at this. We have the same order. The product name is identical, but they have different keys, which is really bad. Of course, the rest is going to be like identical. It is getting like fanning out. So this product has an issue. The same product name, but different keys. And this is a typical issue if we are joining using like names and text. Things can go quickly wrong. So that means we have to go and check the dimension products. So it was the kitchen something, right? So let's just search for it. This is the first one. And look at this, we have duplicates actually inside the dimension products. So we have different codes for the same product. And if you scroll to the right side, you can see one of them is actually have more data than the other. So here we have like brand and the other row doesn't have brand. Same thing for the price and the supplier. Of course, this is a data quality issue that came from the source system. And here we have like two options. Either we're going to go to the source system and tell them, hey guys, you have like wrong stuff. You have the same product twice. Go and clean up the data and then everything gonna be fine here. Or you're gonna go and manually start removing things. But of course, this is no guarantee that later we'll not get any like quality issues. Now, if the source system don't want to clean the data and they're gonna leave it as it is, then either you're gonna go and now like clean things manually, or what is way better, we usually build like a data warehouse where we build pipelines and quality gates in order to detect and fix those issues. But now for this project, since we don't have like a lot of products, we're gonna go and manually remove those bad rows. So here we have to decide which version should stay, and of course it's gonna be the one with more infos. So that means with the nulls should be dropped out of our dimension. Now of course we have to detect how many other like scenarios like this. So I will just remove this filter, select all. Now how we're gonna do it, we're gonna go and just group by the product names. So we're gonna go and say, based on the product name, go and count the rows and change the filter to 2. You can see we have the issue with two products, the kitchen and the audio. So it is not that a big deal. What we're gonna do, we're gonna go remove this test. Of course, now the question is how we're gonna remove those two rows. I will not do it like as a last step inside our dimension. I'm gonna go way back, maybe at this step, filtering the rows as we remove the one bad row where the product key is equal to ZZZ. So now, of course, the question is, where are those stuff? Well, it is the last two rows. You can see here, we don't have brands for them. We don't have a unit price. And now I remember we had like a really nice column for the source ID. So you can see here, we have like a source ID, a row identifier for each one of them. And we can use it in order to filter the data out. So this is one bad ID. I'm going to go and copy the value and then use it in order to filter the data. So I will check this out. Same thing for the last row. So I'm going to go and copy this as well, and as well use it in order to filter the data out. All right, so as you can see now in our filter, we have three things. We are filtering the data based on the product code and based on the source ID. So now let's go and check again. We have to group up the data by the product name. So group by, insert, and product name. Now let's check the filter. Yes, we have only one. So that means, my friends, our product names are actually unique, but be careful now to just remove the test. All right, now we go to the last step to make sure that everything is working correctly. Nice. So now let's go and save and check again our numbers. So come on. Yes, we got back our number. With that, we protected the number and the facts, and it was successful merge to the product. So we can now go and continue. Let's go back to the Power Query. So where is our fact table? So with this, now we got the two big dimensions, the product key, the customer ID. Now what is left is actually the junk, right? So we have those three columns and we have to connect the junk to it. Now I see already that we have an issue for the lookup. We need all those three in order to join it with the dimension, but we just removed the order channel, right? So if I go now and merge, it will not work. That means I'm gonna take it back. I'm gonna go to the junk and I'm gonna go and bring the ID back. So I believe this was the step. So let's go and bring it back. Yes. So we need those stuff. I'm gonna go and rename it. This is the channel code. Now let's go back to the fact sales. And let's do the merge with the junk dimension. So we need it. It is over here, the order flags. Now we're going to go and mark all those stuff, but not the channel itself because it has no idea about it. It is something that we added. Then we're going to go to the right side and select those three. So now things should work and in the correct order, by the way. So the order channel, the status and the priority. Same thing from the dimension. Left join. Okay. Now the next step, we're going to go and expand. Since it is only a lookup, we just need the key. So okay, yes, we got the junk flag. Let's go and do it side by side with the others. And of course the big question, do we have issues with our number? So I'm gonna go and close and apply. Well, look at this, it is safe, so our number is protected. Let's go back. I know we are jumping between, but this is part of the job. We have to do things like carefully. All right, so with this now we got all the keys, all the IDs inside our fact, and it is ready to get connected to the dimensions. And now we're gonna go to the next phase where I like to go and drop things and polish the facts in order to follow the standards and the rules that we have added at the beginning. So now we're gonna start with the first thing. Do we really need all those columns inside our facts? So let's do it step by step. The line ID we need, the order ID as well, in order to count how many orders inside the fact. The product name, we don't need it anymore. We just used it in order to build the keys. So we're gonna go and remove it. Then we have the keys. That's of course what we need. And then we have the numbers. We need all the stuff in the facts. Now we come to something that is really important to understand. Now the thing is, in transactional source systems, they usually store the same informations over and over in different tables, just in order to optimize the performance of their UI and applications. And this is of course a big issue for us because then we're gonna have like the same information everywhere inside our data model, and this is gonna make a big confusion on how to build the reports. So that means, my friends, you have to protect the data model by having like one single point of truth for each info. So that means if I have the customer city inside the dimension customer, I don't need it somewhere else. This is gonna be the dimension customer is the single point of truth for the cities of the customers. So I don't have to leave it in like another dimension or to leave it in the facts. So always try to reduce the noise that we inherited from the source systems and make a decision where you're gonna store what, but only once.
I said I was only gonna say it once.
So that means, my friends, we will not leave the customer city inside our facts. We have it already inside our dimension. Look at this. We have here the city of our customers. So that means we don't need this extra noise that we have in the facts. We will just go and remove it. By the way, this is one of the things that I have noticed a lot. People are gonna say, you know what, we might need it. So you really have to take a hard decision and start removing things that you don't need and keep it only in one place. Same thing as well for the region name. It as well belongs to the customer dimension. So let's go and remove. And now here's something interesting to what we said. We have here the ship to city and bill to city. This is different information than we had in the dimension customer. This belongs to the transaction, to the order. So for each order, we have the city where it is shipped to. And here the customers might change from one order to another to which city or to which location the order should be delivered. So the city here belongs to the transaction, to the event. It is not like master data of the customer. So that means this has different meaning than the cities that we have inside the dimension. It is something here transactional and could change from one order to another. So that's why I will not go and remove those informations, because this belongs to the event, to the transaction. So it's always really important to understand the business, to understand the domain, how things works. So let's keep going. The order date, of course, we need it. Now we have a lot of things that we don't need anymore because they were only here in order to do a lookup. So I'm gonna go and remove those stuff that were belonging to the junk. And now we come to something really interesting, the total sales in the header. So here as well, we have to decide, because now we have two things. Look at this. We have the total sales for the whole order. And here we have like the sales for each item, each line in the order. Now, of course, if everything is clean, the sum of the line of totals should be exactly the same value that we have here from the header. So that means the grain between those two are different. And now here, usually I decide on the following, where I say we go and remove any pre-aggregated values, because to be honest, I don't trust it. If I need the total sales for each order, actually I just go and summarize those values. So I have the data already available. I don't want to have like pre-aggregated things inside the data model that's maybe outdated, or maybe the calculation is not anymore correct. That's why I tend to remove any pre-aggregated things that I inherit from the source system, especially if I have the same information from another detailed measure. So that's why the order total that we got from the header, it is something unnecessary, and I'm gonna go and remove it. I can always get it back if it's needed. All right, my friends, so with this, we have removed a lot of things from our fact table, and now things looks really good. Now I would like always to order my fact like this. We have always at the start all the IDs, and then all the dates, and at the end all the measures, all the numbers. It is not something that's very important, but I like to order it like this. So that's why I'm gonna go and grab all the context to the starts and just leave the numbers at the end. So now look at this. We have IDs everywhere. Then we have the cities. We have to do something about it. After that, we have the dates. We have only one. And at the end, we have the bundle of all measures and numbers that we have in the facts. So we are almost there, but to be honest, I'm still not happy about those two. So we have the ship to city and the bill to city. Now, of course, I can leave those informations like this, but we could build a dimension for it. So that we have like IDs instead of text here, which can reduce, of course, the size of the fact table. And at the same time, maybe I need more context to those cities, like for example, the region or the country and so on. So it's always better to convert those contexts to dimensions. So that means we have actually to construct a new dimension called dimension geo or locations or whatever you want to call it. Now, of course, the question is, what is the source for this new dimension? Should we get it from the fact, or do we have like some row tables that can help us with that? Well, remember we had really nice row table called cities. This is perfect. This is already like waiting for us to build a dimension for it. We just skipped it. As you can see, we cannot like think of everything at the start. As we progress in the data model, we can understand, okay, we need more things, and we always can go back to the raw data and make new dimensions. So now how we're gonna do it, this is gonna be very simple. We're gonna go and create a reference, and we're gonna drag this reference to the dimensions. We're gonna go and give it a name, dem geo. Now we have to make sure that this has no duplicates. I'm not really sure whether it has or not, so I'm gonna go and remove duplicates. Well, nothing changed, but I'm gonna leave it as a step. Maybe things changed. Of course, what is missing in this dimension? We need an ID, right? So we're gonna go and add a new index that starts from 1 and bring it to the top. So let's go and rename it. This is gonna be geo key, surrogate key. And the last thing that I'm gonna do, just rename things. So this is the city and this is the region. Perfect. Now we have new dimension. Of course, what is the next step? We're gonna go and connect it to our fact sales. So over here using the city name, but my friends, we're gonna go and connect it twice, because here we have like two cities, right? They are different. The city for the shipment and another one for the bill. So let's go and do that. We're gonna do it quickly. We're gonna go and merge and then grab our new dimension. It's gonna be, of course, the city. So, and then hit OK. Expand. We need only the key. All right. And then we're going to merge again for the other column. So same dimension. We need a city, but this time for the pill. All right. Expand as well. We need the key. Now, before we forget, we're going to go and rename things. So we're going to call it ship to city key. And the other one, pill to city key. All right. So now let's go and grab them to the other keys. So we can put it over here. And now we're going to go and remove those two cities. We have IDs. So remove. Perfect. Now let's have a final look. Look at this. We just have numbers. Now the last step that I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go and just rename all the columns to follow our standards, the snake case. All right, so now I just went through all the columns and everything is renamed. Look at this. Everything looks perfect. We have only numbers and date. And this is exactly how the fact table is supposed to be. If you get it, my friend, like this, then congrats. We just built a perfect core fact table for our data model out of this complicated setup, the header and the details. Now I'm gonna say the fact is ready, and now we're gonna go to the satisfying part where we're gonna go and deactivate some row tables, and then we're gonna go and connect the dimensions to our fact. Let's go and do that. I'm just going and deactivate now the orders, both of them, and as well the order line, and then close and apply. Alright, so now what we're gonna do, let's go and make like two words. On the left side, it's gonna be this chaos, but on the right side, we're gonna have our new clean data model, the star schema. So this is our fact. And now let's go and bring our dimensions. So product, the geo, customers, and the junk dimension. So let's form the star and make sure we don't have any garbage like in our model. So now let's go and zoom in. We still have to do it carefully how we connect the dimensions to the fact, but the pattern, it's always the same. So we're gonna grab the customer ID and put it on the fact. Here, it's very important that you see one-to-many relationship and the filter is single. So never both, okay? So that's it. Let's save. This looks good. One-to-many and the arrow going to the fact. Same thing for the product key. So drag and drop, one-to-many, single, save. And for the junk, so we need flag key. This is over here, one-to-many, single. And now comes something, of course, really interesting. We have only one dimension, but we have to connect it twice to our fact table. One for the billing and another one for the shipment. Well, we're gonna do that. So the geo key goes to the shipment, one-to-many, single. This is gonna be the active one, and the second one gonna be the billing. So drag and drop, one-to-many and single. So save. So with that, my friend, our dimension geo is actually a role-playing dimension. We have two relationships to the fact table. One is active, that's going to be used all the time. And another one is inactive, that we have to use DAX in order to use this relationship, of course. But now you might say, okay, this is like way too more complicated than before. If we had like both of them inside the fact table, I can just go and use them inside my reports. Well, this is a fair point if you never need like more geo informations, but if you start like needing the regions, the countries, and this geo is like getting bigger and bigger, then it makes no sense to leave it inside the fact. And as well, it makes no sense to go and duplicate the dimension twice. Those are all bad designs. So now my friends, look at this. If I zoom out, you can see clearly the two words. On the left side, we have the full chaos, and on the right side, we start having the shape of our star schema, our goal, and things looks way more better than before. So this is exactly, my friends, how we migrate from bad data model to a new better model that's gonna deliver only correct numbers, good performance, and as well reduce any confusion. Okay, so now we have to keep going, but this time I'm gonna go and pick something that is a little bit easy. So that we have break. I will not pick something complicated. We're gonna go this time with the inventories. This is an easy one. So let's go and do something about it. We're gonna go and enter the Power Query. So what do we have here? The inventories. Oh yes, we have here the product names, and for each month we have the total amount of items that is planned. Well, of course, the first question is it a fact or dimension? Well, since we have numbers, we have dates, this is gonna be a fact. So before we do anything, we're gonna go and make a reference, then move it to our facts. This is our second fact. I'm gonna go and call it fact inventory, and now we can start preparing the fact. Now, the first easy issue with that, the first column is not promoted as a header. So the column names are weird. That's why we're going to go and say use first row as header. Easy win. Now, by looking to this, you can see it is a really nice table for us, for humans to read, but this is very bad for data modeling because the date information is stored as a column name. We cannot use this, of course, in reporting. That's why we have to convert this from human ready to data module and reporting. And how we can do that? Using unpivot by turning the columns into rows. It is very simple what we're going to do. We can go to transform, then select all the columns. And here we have this nice function, unpivot. Look at this, like magic. Now all the column names are values inside my table, and this looks already like a fact table. And now after that, I think this is the data type text, right? So we can see here text. We have to go and convert this to a real date. Then it can be easier to use in the reporting. And same thing that we have done before, we have to go and get the product key. So we need a lookup, and how we can do it as usual, we go and merge with the dimension. So dimension, products, connect the names and say, okay, Now after that, we're gonna go and get only the key, bring it to the start, and remove the product name. We don't need it anymore, so remove. And of course, my friends, you have to go and check things. And now I'm doing things quickly, but still we have to go to the report, make a card, go and calculate all the values. After merging, are we getting like any duplicates? But now in order to make things quicker, I will not do that, but you have to do it at your side. I would never trust that everything is okay now. So now the last step in our new fact, I'm gonna go and rename things. So this is the product key, and this is gonna be, I'm gonna call it for now month, and instead of value, I'm gonna call it units. All right, friends, so actually that's it. With this, we got our second fact, and it is perfect. It has an ID, it has a date, and as well a measure. Now, before we go and start connecting things, I'm just gonna go and like deactivate. So the inventory should not be loaded. And actually, we have here a few things that we didn't deactivate before. So we have here the orders and as well the channels. So we don't need you. Okay, so now let's close and apply. You can see the chaos is getting reduced by the time. And here we got our new fact table. Let me just zoom in and have a look. Probably I done it correctly. I wanted to do that, but as you can see, we never connect the fact tables together. So there is no direct lines using the product key. We connect the fact tables always using the shared dimension, and this can be the dimension products. Of course, a quick look, it is one-to-many relationship and the direction is correct. As you can see, if you do things correctly, Power BI gonna love it and it's gonna build it for you correctly. So my friends, look at this. We are moving from star schema and now we are like building the galaxy, right? Which is of course still star schema. So my friends, that was a quick win. Alright friends, so that was the inventory. It was a little break. Now let's go back to something more advanced. Now we have to go and pick something from our data model. So we have invoices and stuff. I'm gonna say let's go and solve the campaign. So we have the campaign log and another one, the campaign SKUs. So it's time to solve this puzzle. As usual, we're gonna go inside Power Query. So let's go and do that. Okay, so let's go to the campaign log. So again, what do you have here? The campaign name, the channel, the start date and the end date of the campaign, the budget, date, and some nice numbers. So clearly this looks like a nice fact table, but still inside it we have some context about this fact. So the context is, my friend, the campaign itself. So it looks like a clear split between one dimension and one fact, right? And let's have a quick look to the other one, the campaign SKUs. We have here the campaign name and the product names as a list. So this sounds like the connection to the rest of our star schema, the products, the product code. So I think I got the full big picture. Now let's go and start building the dimension, the new one. All right, so as usual, we're gonna go and create a reference out of the row table. Now we're gonna start with the dimension. So that's why we're gonna bring it to the dimension folder and rename it. So this is gonna be the dimension campaign. All right, so now which column's gonna stay and which gonna leave? Well, my friends, we have here clear split. So all those columns are actually transactional columns that belongs to the fact, and the rest is gonna be the dimension. So let's get rid of those. Now, of course, as usual, we're gonna go and remove all the duplicates from those columns. So remove. With this, we got our 6 campaign that we have inside our data model. And now by looking to this, you might say, but wait a second, what is going on here? Actually, the fact always contains like dates and numbers, and this dimension looks like a fact. So why we are calling this a dimension campaign? Well, totally fair point. At the start, I was as well confused about this topic, but my friend, the dimensions and facts are not defined by the data type of the columns. Think about it. A dimension is just a context, a description for an event. And a fact table, it is the event itself. It is transaction. It is something that keep happening every day. So something that grows fast, right? So now by looking to this, my friends, this is not transactional. This is not an event. Yes, it has a start date and end date, but this is actually describing the campaign. It is more context, more info for the campaign itself. And the number budget over here, it is a fixed value that as well describe how big is our budget for this campaign. So yes, it looks like an event, but this is not transactional. Those are just describing the campaign. Now, in order to understand what is a real transaction, just go back to the original table. Look at this, what each row here is representing. So for the first row, for example, we have the campaign name, the channel, the start and ends, the budget, but here we have a real transaction with the dates, so we can see every day what is happening. So in the first day, what happens? We spent so much, we got so much clicks and impressions. What happens in the next day for the same campaign? We spent less, but we got more clicks, and so on. So my friends, all those columns are actually transactional columns. Every day we are like getting something new about the campaign. And if you go to the left side, you're gonna see those informations are really static. So the budget will not change, the start and end will not change as well. And because, my friends, those informations are describing the event itself. So the left side is not changing so much. That's why it is a dimension. But on the right side, there is a lot of transactions and movement. And that's why, my friends, those 4 columns are a fact. I hope this makes sense, but this is how we define a dimension and a fact, not only based on the data types, but as well what is going on, how the transaction is happening, and by understanding the business itself. So that's why I decided on this split based actually on the data. Now let's go back to our dimension. We are not done yet. Of course, what is missing, we need an ID. So start from 1, move it to the left side, and actually that's it. The last thing that we have to do is to just go and rename things. So I will just do it quickly. This is the key, this is the name, this is the channel, start date. Alright, so I can say our dimension is ready. Now let's go and create our fact table. So same thing, we're gonna go and create a reference. As you can see now, our work is repetitive, right? This is exactly how things works. So this is gonna be the fact campaign, but I'm gonna call it spend since we have the spending there. Alright, so now what we're gonna do, actually we don't need all those informations, we have them already in the dimension. That means we need now to do a lookup in order to get the campaign key. So as usual, we go and merge queries with our new dimension, the campaign. We join with the campaign name, it is unique in our dimension, and then say, okay, now since this is a lookup, we just need the key, we don't need all other informations. Drag it to the start because we have always the keys at the start, and get rid of all those things. Those are in our dimension. So now what is left, we have the date, impression, click spent, looks nice. The last step, we're gonna go and just rename things. So I'm gonna do it quickly. Campaign, key, and I'm gonna make everything lowered. Alright, my friends, so with this now we got our third fact inside our data model. Now let's go to the last table we have here still, the campaign SKUs. Now before we start working on this, we're gonna go and create a reference out of it. So reference. Now I'm gonna go and put it in the facts, but I'm gonna explain myself later, okay? Just stay with me. Now the first issue is that we have here, we don't have a column name, so that's why I'm gonna go and promote it as a header. Now what do you have here? We have like a list of product codes. This is of course a nice thing, but I cannot use it in reporting, right? I cannot go and connect it now to our model. So that's why we have to do something about it, and we call moving a list into rows and explode. So we have to explode it into multiple rows, and we can do that easily by going to the column and say split columns by delimiter, because we have here a comma. Let me just move it a little bit. So the delimiter is actually a comma. Now the thing is, I will not go and split by columns. I don't want each value to go in separate columns. This makes no sense. This time we are splitting by a row. So if you go to the advanced settings, you can see here we split by columns or rows. I'm gonna go with the rows. All right, so actually that's it. Let's go and hit OK. Look at this. Now each product code is now a new row. But now before we celebrate this, we have a quality issue. If you see like some values are shifted a little bit to the right side, you can understand this if you go back to the original steps at the start. You can see the values are, yes, splitted by comma, but there is like after that a space. This is just like a cosmetic thing for us in order to read the list easier. But of course, this is causing an issue after we explode. So you see the first value has no space, but all other values are like moving to the right side because of the white space at the start. So how to solve this? It is very simple. We're gonna right click on it and then go to transform. And here we have the nice trim. Look at this, everything moved to the left side and we don't have any more empty space, because my friends, we have always to take care of the values that are used for the merge later. Alright, so now what we're gonna do with this, my friends? Well, this is not like a dimension because it is like two different entities, right? The campaign and the products. And as well, you can see it in our dimensions. We have a dimension for the product, we have dimension for the campaign, and this is like just mapping between them. So I cannot go and put it in the dimension product or in the dimension campaign. And of course, it makes no sense to create like a third dimension called campaign product mapping, because this is not one entity. So now in order to understand more what is this, let's go and convert those values to keys as we have done like in the facts. So now instead of the campaign name, I'm gonna go and make a lookup and grab it from the dimension. So campaign, and we connect by the campaign name. Alright, now let's go and grab the key. We're gonna do the same thing as well for the products. So let's go and merge dimension product. This time we are connecting using the product code, not the product name. Alright, now let's go and get the key, put them side by side and get rid of those two informations. So remove columns. Now the last thing, I'm just gonna go and replace the names. So this is the campaign name and the other one is the product key. Now look at this, my friends. If you have a table that contains a lot of keys and you have the feeling this is like mapping or a bridge between multiple dimensions, this table has no numbers, just like collection of keys, then my friend, welcome to a new type of facts. We call it the factless fact. A factless fact, it is like a classical fact table. It has a lot of IDs in order to connect multiple dimensions. It has as well dates, but the only difference is that it doesn't contain any numbers, so no measures. So that means with the factless facts, we are not measuring anything. So we are not interested about the how much. We are only tracking whether something happened or not. So it is very simple. If your fact has no measures, no numbers, then this is a factless fact. So in this example, it is a little bit weird, okay? It is not that like perfect fact that we usually have. We don't have a date, only the keys. And as well, we cannot turn this into dimension because this is not describing actually anything. If this keeps like really weird inside your data model, you can go and just get rid of it. But for now, we just build it. That's why I'm gonna go and call it the fact promotion coverage. Okay, so this is our weird fact, but of course we have way better fact here that you can do a lot of analysis using it. And we have our new dimension. So now next what we're gonna do with that, we're gonna go and deactivate things. We don't need them anymore. So disable load. Yes, same thing for the campaign SKUs. Alright, so now let's go and close and apply. Alright, so now we have here less things on the chaos world. We are moving to the right side and here we have our new stuff. So this is our factless facts. Let me zoom in. This is our new facts, the campaign spend. It is connected correctly to the dimension campaign. So one-to-many relationship and the arrow is correct. And the dimension campaign, it is a shared dimension to the factless facts, which is just playing the role as a bridge between the product and the campaign. Look at this, things are getting connected, yeah, slowly. So I will just move things a little bit closer. So now by looking to this, you can see our shared dimension, the product, is shared now by 3 facts. So it is a really very important one, of course. And this is of course a typical thing because in each business, the products are the most important things. So we are transitioning, right? All right, now my friends, we come as well to a point where it's gonna get a little bit heavy, but I'm gonna explain it step by step. So that means if you are watching and you didn't take a break, go take fresh air, make a cafe, and then we continue. This is gonna be a little bit tricky, but we're gonna see. Okay, let's go. So now, as I said, we have now some events that we're gonna tackle in one go. Of course, as usual, we're gonna go back to the Power Query in order to understand the content and reshape things later. So now, what else that we have inside our table? We have the invoices. So you can see we have an invoice ID, an order ID, the customer name, invoice date, amount. So this is as well transactional. This is an event. Now, if you go to the payments, you're gonna have the same feeling. We have the payment ID, the invoice ID, customer, payment day, and the amount. Now, if we go to the shipments, again, very close. Shipment ID, order ID, and so on. So, my friends, all of those things are events, and somehow they are all connected together. Now, in order to understand how to deal with this, we have first to understand the process. So, the process is very simple. Like any order, we have a customer, which is the company. They go and place an order. So this is the first step. After that, we're gonna go and ship the products to the customer. So this is the second step. And of course, it's gonna follow up with a delivery. So this is gonna be the third step. So we're gonna deliver. And after that, we're gonna issue an invoice. So this is number 4. And the last step, my friends, the payment's gonna happen. So pay. This is step number 5. So actually, this is the whole process of ordering something from our business. Now, of course, each step in our process is actually a transaction. So it has like a date, it has a number, so how much the total sales for this order. Same thing for the shipment, the delivery had as well date, invoice, and as well we have like some numbers on top of it, and how much the customer did pay. So each one of them has their own table and transactions, but everything is actually, my friends, are connected back to the order. This is the main trigger for the whole event. Now, of course, what are our options in order to build this process inside our data model? Either we're going to go like the source system where we're going to go and build a table for each step. So that means we're going to go and build like one fact table for each step. With that, we're going to get like 5 fact tables. We have already one for the orders, but for the rest, we have to go and build them. Well, this sounds smart and reasonable things to do. But now if you have like a deeper look to each of those steps, you're going to find that we are talking about the same same money over and over. So the same number should be in the orders and as well in the invoice, and I hope in the payments. Now, of course, the big question is, do the business users really want all those numbers in our reports? Are there many use cases for all those numbers? Well, I'm gonna say no. Usually the business user is gonna ask us, okay, find me the total number of sales for the whole business, or maybe by the region or by the products. And for this, my friends, we have one single point of truth for that. It's gonna be the orders. So I'm gonna go and grab the number, the money from the order. So I would not go and start like showing all the numbers from each steps, because at the end it is the same money. So that means we will not get like a lot of use cases for those numbers that we're gonna have inside those facts. But actually, by looking to this, we're gonna get better questions from the business. They're gonna ask questions about the whole process itself. So they're gonna start asking questions actually not about the numbers but about the dates. So those informations are way more interesting than the numbers. Like for example, how long it takes from an order to delivery, or how long it takes from an order to the payment. So there will be a lot of questions. How long from the delivery to invoice, or invoice payment. So that means usually the business, and especially the process expert, they're gonna ask a lot of questions about the dates. So that means what is actually interesting from all those tables are actually the dates for the business intelligence. And now what we could do, instead of having like a fact for each step, we're gonna go and make like one fact table that's gonna put side by side all those dates inside this fact table. And once we have everything in one fact table, then we can answer many questions about the process. And of course, I'm not inventing here something. In business intelligence, in data modeling, this has a famous name. This is, my friend, a type of fact table called accumulating snapshots. So each row gonna represent like one event, one order that gonna hold all the milestone dates of the steps in our process. So this is the accumulating snapshot fact that we're gonna go now and build. Okay, so now since we have now special type of fact, it's gonna be as well special how to build it. It will not be like the others. Now since we're gonna have like the whole process in one row, a lot of tables gonna be involved in building this fact. So this is gonna be something special. Now how to build it, we usually start with the spine, and usually it is the first step in the process. It is the order. So that means, my friends, these orders that we build at the start where we combine things together, this is gonna be the starting point for our new fact. That means I'm gonna go and create a reference out of it. Then we're gonna go and drop it in the facts. So we can go and call it, for example, fact, order, process, or fulfillment, whatever. All right, so with this, we have now good starting point. This is the spine of our fact. Each row is one order. And now the question is, which column is gonna stay and which gonna leave? Now again, what is our purpose? We want to show for each order, for each customer, all the steps, dates for the whole process. So that means I don't actually need a lot of things over here. I just need the order dates. So that means I'm gonna go and remove all those stuff. Same thing for the junks over here. So let's just go and remove. Actually, that's all what I need. So order ID, customer name, and order date. This is the first step in the process. Now, of course, instead of having the customer name, in order to connect it to our data model, we're gonna go and make a lookup. So we're gonna go and join it with the dimension customer name, and then we're gonna go and get our key. Perfect. Go to the left side and remove the customer name. Perfect. Now we have the first step. Now we have to go and get the other steps of our process. What is the next one? We have the shipment. So we have the shipment ID, the order ID, the mode, the date, and the delivery date. So we have here 2 dates of the process, which is exactly what do we need. Now about the mode, we can include it or not. But for now, I will not include those stuff inside our fact. So I'm going to go back to the order process and then merge the shipment with our table. So it is somewhere over here, shipments. We join by the order ID and hit OK. Now we have to go and expand. We don't need the IDs, we have it already. We don't need the mode, I just need the dates. Perfect, look at this, we have the shipment date and the delivery. Now what is the next step? We need actually the invoice. So let's have a look to the invoices. So the invoice ID, again the order ID, this is our key. We have again the customer name, we don't need it, we have it already. We just need the invoice dates. The amount is gonna be like the total sales. So I'm just collecting the dates. Let's go back to our process and same thing, we can go and merge invoices, order ID, okay. Then we have to expand, so just just give me the date. So now we are getting closer. Now the last step in our process is gonna be the payment, right? So over here, well, we don't have the order ID, we have an invoice ID. So we're gonna join using the invoice ID. We have it. We don't need the customer name, just give me the date. So let's go back to the process. Now, of course, I need the invoice ID. That's why I'm gonna go some steps back in order to expand correctly. So I need the invoice and as well the dates. Otherwise, I cannot join it. So actually, now we have the ID and now we can do the merge. So we need the payments over here. This time, the invoice ID with the invoice ID. Let's hit OK. Then the last expansion, we need the payment date. Now I can go and get rid of the invoice ID. I don't need it anymore. So remove. So now, do we have everything for our process? We have the order, the shipment, delivery, invoice, and payment. And this looks exactly like our business process. So this is, my friends, the fact that's called accumulating snapshots. For one event, you're gonna get all the dates of the process. Of course, I'm doing things very quickly. I usually do and test a lot. Each merge, I check whether we have duplicates or the numbers are correct. But now, in order to make things a little bit quicker, I'm just merging like crazy. So this looks really good. Now, what you're gonna do actually with the other tables? I'm gonna say we're gonna go and deactivate them because we have now the most important aspect of all those tables. And of course, if in the future we got like more specific things and more specific questions about, for example, the invoices, then we might go activate it again and build like special purpose fact for it. But actually we got the best of this table. So we connected is with the order. We have already the customers, the invoice dates, and the amount is not that important. We have it in the fact sales. So that's why, my friends, I'm gonna go and deactivate it from the model. Same things for the others. So let's go to the payments. The same money is just repeating over and over. So deactivate. Same thing for the shipment over here. Well, we can go and include the mode if it's really that important. But again, if we get like some specific use case for the shipment, we can go and activate it and add this column. This will not be now necessary for our data model. So we are deactivating a lot of things. Now, by looking to this, we still have the invoice lines. This is exactly the same setup like we had at the start. The invoice line is the details of the invoice and the invoices is the header. Again, if there is like special needs, special use case in order to analyze the invoices, we can go and always build a fact tables out of those stuff. But for now, I don't see it as a core thing inside our data model because again, the same money is repeating. So I'm gonna go and deactivate this as well. All right, now we have deactivated almost like everything. So let's go and save and see what do we have and look to our data model. So this should get really empty. Oh, wow. Look, we still have like 4 tables out of the chaos. And of course, everything went to the new data model. Now, of course, you might think now I'm trying to rush up the project in order to close things. But to be honest, this is exactly the way how I work. I don't go and push everything inside the data model in order to have everything just in case someone asks for something. I try to push really hard on the data model only to leave what is necessary. And I can tell you, after working in many projects, this is exactly the process. I understand the business and try to bring the core facts and the core dimensions to the data model. And if there is like 1 or 2 customers are asking very specific questions about like some weird tables, I would not go and destroy the data model, to be honest. I'm gonna go and build another Power BI model just for their purposes. So it's gonna be something quick just to make their analysis and that's it. And try to protect the core data model from those edge use cases. So this is my style on how I do data modeling, but there are a lot of people that go and include everything inside the data model just in case. Well, if you do it like this, then you are including a lot of things that will never be used in reporting. And this is really waste of space, performance, and as well confuse a lot in reporting. All right, so now back to our data model. Now we have like new things. We have to be as well careful that the new core data model is not getting like full of chaos. So we have the order process. This is the accumulating snapshot type. And yes, it is connected with the customers and that's it. So yes, we are getting a lot of facts, but we are making sure none of the facts are connecting to each others. They always go through a shared dimension. Our shared dimension now is the customers and the products. And always the relationships are healthy. So we have here one-to-many relationship and the direction is from the dimension to the facts. So this is not chaotic. This is very healthy. Okay, so now we are getting very close to end the migration. Look at this naked table at the ends. Let's go and put it here. So what do we have here? We have 5 tables yet to go. Now let's go to Power Query and start like investigating those stuff. Now I'm gonna start with the very obvious one. Remember the sheet one? It is a complete duplicate of the shipment. So they are like identical tables. Think this is an import problem that happens maybe from the source system or in the Excel. Of course, happens a lot in real projects where you import stuff that are actually not necessary inside the model. So what you're gonna do, we're gonna go and just delete it, not enable. So we remove it completely physically from our model. It is not something that we're gonna need later. Okay, so let's keep going. We have the exchange rate. Well, I'm thinking about this. We don't have like any relevance for this inside our data model. It is something transactional, maybe important for the interfaces in the source system. But for reporting, why do we need those informations? And actually, I cannot go and connect it to our data model. That's why I'm gonna say this is a standalone table that actually will not help us at all. So I'm gonna go actually and deactivate it. I will not like physically remove it. Maybe there is like use case for it. We cannot connect this anywhere. So deactivate. Now, what else? We have here the sales target. So here we have the target revenue and the period. So someone is like actually planning the target for each month. Well, this is like mini transactional table. This is not a dimension. That's why I'm gonna say, let's go and make small fact out of this. It will not hurt. So we're gonna go and bring it to the facts, rename it, of course. So rename fact. I'm gonna call it the sales targets. And what else we could do? We just go and maybe rename things to follow our standards. So the date and the target revenue. So actually that's it. It is a mini one that don't have really any like IDs to customers or dimensions. Only has a date and a measure. So that's it. Let's go and deactivate this one. Disable load. Now, what else do we have? We have the security, and as well, we have a dimension underscore order. This is, of course, completely garbage table. So here we have just like a list of all orders, and this makes no sense. We have already better tables for this. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go and remove this completely physically from our data model. So delete, we will not deactivate. Perfect. Now, the last thing that is left is the security. Of course, my friends, we cannot leave the data model as it is. We have to make it secure following the standards, and here we have a very helpful table to let us know which user is allowed to see which region. But of course, we're gonna do this in the last phase. So now what I'm gonna say, actually we have covered everything. So let's go and close and apply and have a look. Yes, it is empty. I know we have the security. We can do this later. I'm gonna bring it near to our data model here. And my friends, I can say the nightmare dataset just got cleaned up. So we have here a healthy star schema. Just enjoy this view. Have a look to this. We have a healthy data model. I think my camera gave up, so back. Now look at this, my friends. We don't have anything anymore from the old spider web, the nightmare dataset. Everything is migrated to a clean star schema, of course, a Galaxy one. So everything is connected using the best practices, and we have here only one fact table that stands alone and the security table. So just sit back and look at this. This is really satisfying, but of course we are not done yet. We still have the last phase. Alright friends, now the next phase, it's all about polishing the data model. So here we're gonna finalize our data model. We're gonna make it trustworthy before handing it over for the next phases. So we're gonna do things like, for example, we're gonna go and check again our standards, our rules, and check whether all the tables and the columns are following it. Like the snake case, like the prefixes, suffixes, the keys, and so on. The second step that I usually do is that I go and create the dimension date. It is a special dimension that actually gonna be needed almost in all our facts. So we have to create it and connect it in the data model. This is one of the things that I do at the end. And after that, we're gonna build like a collection of measures. So we're gonna make like set of very obvious measures that's gonna be needed on top of this model. And after that, we're gonna make sure that our data model is secure. That means we're gonna apply on this model the row level security. It's like almost standards in any project. And after that, we do the final testing. So we go to the report level and we go and check only the big numbers and whether the dimensions are working correctly to make sure that everything is correct before handing over this data model for the others. Usually the last step is I go and make a meeting and talk to the others, show them the start schema and make a guide on how to use it for reporting. Alright my friends, so now let's deep dive in this phase.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so now let's start with the first step where we're gonna go and check whether our data model is following the standards and rules. I'm pretty sure that I have forgotten something during the building phase. We are at the end human and we might forget things. So now how I usually do it is that I go to the table view over here and have a quick check on the right side. So I can see that everything is sorted correctly using the prefix. So we have the dimensions and the facts, and the last one is the security. So by looking through this, I can say all the names of our tables are following the standards. Then we go just quickly through all the tables one by one, just to have a quick look. Well, everything looks so far fine. Well, seems that I have followed all the rules. Well, not everywhere. So I have to fix here the naming conventions for this fact table. So we have to do it quickly to go to the Power Query. Okay, the fact order. So customer ID, order date, ship date. Okay, looks good. So I'm gonna go and close and apply. All right, so we are following the standards over here. Let's go and keep going. Looks good, as well good. The security gonna be at the end. Okay, so that means we are following all the rules for the table names and as well for the columns. Now there is another thing that I do, is that I go and check the date formats. Well, you can see here that in our dates we are using the full name, the full month. This looks really weird in reporting. If you have a lot of dates, it's gonna take a lot of space in the report level. So what I usually do is that I decide on one like smaller format and I stick to it for the whole data model. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go and first decide on the formats. So if you go over here to the column tools, you can see that we have format for the dates. And in Power BI, we have a lot of formats. I'm gonna say the standards is gonna be this one. So the year, then the month and day, depend of course on the region, but this one is compacted and small. Look at this, it is not taking so much space. So that means this is gonna be the standards on how to show the format inside the data model. Now we're gonna do very annoying task where I'm gonna go through the whole data model and make sure that all the dates are using this format. Now of course you can pause the video and do it. I'm gonna now fast forward just to make sure this video don't explode. So I'm gonna do this pretty fast. So let's go. So that was the last fact in our data model, and with that we have now the same format for the whole data model. Now there is another thing that I usually do at this phase as well, since we are now going through all tables. When Power BI sees a column as a number, it's gonna make it automatically like aggregatable. So that means if you use it inside your report, Power BI gonna automatically like summarize all the values. This is of course a nice thing, but sometimes we have numbers where it makes no sense to summarize. So it's really nice if you clean this in the data model before going to the next phase, so that people don't make any mistakes. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go through all the tables one by one and always keep your eye on this icon. That means this column could be aggregated. For example, here the budget. You can see here the summarizations, it is sum. If you don't want it to get summarized, you're gonna go over here and say don't summarize. So now you have to make decisions almost for all your numbers. I'm gonna say for the budget it makes sense of course to make maybe an average, so I'm gonna leave it as it is. For the customers, well, I'm gonna say maybe it makes sense to make an average out of this, so this is okay. So let's go through all the dimensions. Same things for the product. So that was the last table, the last column, and with that, all dates inside my data model is following the same format. Alright, so that's what the first step. We made sure that we are following the rules and the standards on the format and everything. Now we're gonna go to the next step that I usually do with that. I go and create the dimension date. There are many different ways on how to create this. I usually do that in the backend. So if I have a database or data bricks, I go and create the dimension there. But since now we are just doing Power BI, I'm gonna show you a way on how to create it directly in your data model. There is a really nice way, I'm gonna say very smart way actually from Power BI. Now, I will not go and give you like a CSV file or a text with all dates inside it and say, hey, this is your dimension. But this time we're gonna go and create it by getting inspired from the data model. So how we're gonna do it, you're gonna go over here to the home, and here in the ribbon we have something called a new table. So what we are doing here, we are like creating a new table inside the data model, and we're gonna go and call it, since this is the dimension date. Now there is a very cool function in Power BI called calendar auto. So read this, it returns a table with one column of dates calculated from the model automatically. And this is exactly what it does. It go and scan the whole data model, understand the range of our business, so understand what is the earliest date and what is the latest date, and just create one column based on that. Very, very cool. So actually that's it, we don't have to give it any arguments, and hit enter. Amazing thing. So look at this, the earliest date is the 1st of January 2025, and the latest date is the end of 2026. And of course this, my friends, gonna expand automatically as the business grow. So that means if the data sets like grow over the time and you have 2027, you don't have to deal with the dimension date because it's gonna grow automatically. So suddenly you can have as well in the dimension date 2027. I can tell you, this is magic really. In my old days as I done business intelligence with other tools, that was one of the biggest struggles, where I had like a manual table and I have to always add in new years and stuff like that. And I can tell you, many people forget forget to update their dimension date. And of course, this caused a lot of problems in the report because almost on each report, you are doing like analysis over the time and you will be using this dimension. So this is one of the most important dimension compared to the others. And if you don't make sure it is always up to date, it's gonna be catastrophic. But now we don't have to deal with all this chaos. Power BI did solve this and everything now is automatic. Just some trauma from my old days. All right, so now what do we have? We have only like one column, right? Now what you can do, you can go of course and change the format to our format. So we need only the date, we don't need the hours and time. And now of course, the next step, if you want to go and expand this dimension to add more columns, like for example, the year, the month, the day, the full name of the day, the full name of the month. So you can add a lot of things to this dimension by just going and adding like a new column. Like for example, if I would like to get only the year, I'm going to do something like this, year equal, and then use the function year and specify here the column. So this is going to be our dimension date, and that's it. So with that, we have the column called year, and I can do the same thing. So I'm going to go and duplicate it. So that we have the years, we can go and create another one for the month. Same story, so month equal the function month in order to extract this part, our column. So my friends, we have a lot of date functions that we could add in order to expand this dimension, but I'm gonna leave it like this now. Of course, the big question is how are we gonna connect this new dimension to our data model? So we have it over here, and there are like many places where we could connect this. Almost all our facts has dates, right? Now, the thing is we have a lot of fact tables inside our data model that have a lot of date fields, and this dimension date can play a very important role in order to make the bridge between all those facts. This is going to be a shared dimension that's going to help us in order to compare all those numbers from different facts. So this is going to be our biggest shared dimension in the whole model. So how we do it, it's very simple. We're going to go through the facts one by one and start connecting it to our dimension. So here we have the fact sales target. We grab the date and connect it to our dimension date. Okay, same thing, we go to the next one. We have as well date, so we connect it to our dimension. All right, so now we have like a shared dimension between those two, and we can go and compare now the numbers between those two facts. Now we have here this factless fact. It is a little bit weird, we don't have a date, so that's why we will not connect anything here. Let's go to the next one. Here we have a month. As well, we can go and connect it to our dimension. Let's go. And of course, the most important one over here, we have the fact sales. So we have the order date. We go and connect it and say save. And the last fact table, here we have a lot of dates. So for example, I'm going to go and grab the order date to the dimension. So now look at this, our dimension date is actually a big shared dimension between a lot of facts. Now this is amazing because now we can do a lot of analysis side by side from all those facts. Let me just show you an example. Let's go to the report view. So now how we're going to do it. Now very important, as usual, in order to build the visual, we start first from the dimension. So the dimension date, this is going to build the axis for our visual. And then after that, we start picking the measures from the different facts. Like for example, the fact sales, we can go and now grab the total sales and put it in the view. Perfect. Now we can go to another one. For example, the fact sales target. This one gonna be on the month level, so the visual gonna looks weird, but we can fix it if we just remove the day from our date so that everything is on the month level. Now we can go to a third fact, like for example, the inventories. So let's go and drop the stocks or the units. This is exactly, my friends, the power of the dimension date. We can go now and visit all the facts and compare things side by side very easily without losing the numbers. Like you can see here, the total sales is always protected, and you can do now a lot of correlations and comparison. So this is the main job of the dimension date inside our data model. Now, of course, what else we can do with the dimension date? We can use it in order to do role-playing dimension. Like for example, we have here a huge fact table with a lot of dates, right? So we have the order date, the invoice date, the pay date. Now we can go and connect our new dimension multiple times to this fact. Let me show you how to do it. So let me just bring this fact here. And now we just grab the date to the different columns. Like for example here, the pay date. Of course, this is gonna be inactive. Then one more time for the ship date and another one for the invoice date. And I think the last one gonna be the delivery date. So look at this. Our dimension date is playing 5 different roles for this fact. But of course, you're gonna do this only if you really need it. Otherwise, this is gonna look really ugly. So don't go randomly like connecting the date for every column. Sometimes we don't really need it. Like for example, if I'm just like analyzing the sales, I don't really need always to go and get the dimension date. So actually I can go and build the visual completely based on the fact sales. I have there the order date, I have everything. So if your analysis is based only on one fact table, then we don't really need the dimension date, but only if you are like comparing multiple facts, then we go to the dimension, of course. And with that, my friends, means we don't have to go crazy and connect the dimension date every single date column that we have in the data model, only if it's needed. And if you create something like this, then you have to go and start like building DAX calculations for each inactive relationship so that you can use it actually in your reports. But if it is not needed, then don't go and create all those relations. Now, our dimension date looks crazy, and this is usually how this dimension looks like at the end. So my friends, this is the topic of the dimension date. I usually do it at the end just to have a big picture first about all my fact tables, and only then at the end I go and connect the dimension date. Okay, so now we come to a very important step in data modeling that a lot of people actually skip at this phase. We have to go and create the measures. Now the thing is, yes, we have a good star schema, we have good structure, everything is connected correctly, the filter direction and all those stuff. But now if you go and hand this over to your project team and everyone start like building on top of it reports and visuals, now what could happen is that multiple people gonna go and start creating multiple versions of calculations that actually are calculating the same thing over and over, and nobody gonna know which one is the right one for the data model. Now another thing that might happen is that people that are working with the data model, they might not yet develop like understanding of the grains of your facts. So for example, they might go to the fact sales and say, you know what, I have to go and calculate the total number of orders. So they go and create calculation where they're gonna count the order IDs, which is totally wrong. The grain there is the line of order. So in order to do it correctly, they have to do count distinct on the order ID. That means this is gonna lead to wrong number even if the data model is perfect. So that means in this phase, our job is not only to structure and build a perfect star schema, but as well we have to go and prepare the measures side by side with our data model just to make sure that we reduce the confusion. And of course, I'm not saying here we have to go and now create all the measures for everything that we have in the data model. We just have to go and create the core measurements, the thing that we are sure is going to be reused over and over in many reports. And by the way, not everyone is working in teams. If you are solo data analyst, this is as well good for you. I'm pretty sure over the time you're going to have like multiple Power BI projects and you're going to forget about the grains and the data model. So you protect yourself making different versions of calculations and as well making wrong calculations. So my friends, this is exactly what we have to do now. We have to go and create a bundle of measures. All right, so now how are we going to do it? There's like two ways. Either you're going to go to each fact and inside them, you're going to start create the individual measures. Or there is like another way that I like to do and many others as well, is to go and bundle, let's say, the major measurements inside one fake table. Let me show you how to do it. So we're going to go over here and say, okay, new table. Now I'm going to call it underscore in order to have it at the top. Then measures equal nothing. With this, we got like an empty table here on the top. And now inside it, we're going to go and start creating all the measures of the data model. So that during creating the reports, you're going to have it all in one place and it's going to be easy to go and drag and drop stuff. And if you want to update your measures, you go directly here and start updating. So now this is our new measure that we have. Of course, we will not connect it to anything. I'm just going to go and move it here side by side with the security so that we can see, okay, this is my star schema and those are the, let's say, the add-ons on top of it. Now let's go to the maybe report view and create a new tab. I'll just start now and create like few major measures inside our data model. So let's start with the fact sales. Like for example here, it's very obvious that one of the major measures, it is the total sales, right? So how are we gonna do it? We're gonna go to the measures over here and right click on it and say new measure. Then we just create like very simple DAX calculations. So for example, total sales equal to the sum of the fact table sales. And now you pick the column, so line total, and actually that's it. Now what we do actually after that, we decide like on the format of this measure. Like for example, I'm gonna have the 1000 like separator. Actually I don't want it as a decimal number, so I just want it always to be a whole number so that everything is formatted and is ready in order to be used in my reports. So now by just drag and drop from this measure, I'm gonna get the total sales without worrying about how this is calculated. So that was an obvious thing. Then we have to keep thinking, okay, what could we measure? Well, very important, the total number of orders. So we're gonna go and create a new measure, total orders equal. Now we want to count how many orders that we have in the business. So we're going to say, okay, count. But again, since the grain is line of total, we're going to go and use the distinct count. And we're going to say, okay, fact sales, the order ID. So Actually, that's it. Now, of course, we can think about how we're going to format it. So it's going to be as well, the thousands going to be separated, and it is a whole number, which is correct. So if I go drag and drop, same thing, I got that total number of orders, which is correct. So as you can see, this is the whole job. We're going to go through all the facts one by one, and we start creating those measures, but we have just to focus on the main things that we are sure that's going to be used in many reports. Like for example, we can go and count the total number of active customers. So there is like a difference between all the customers that we have inside the data model. For that, we can go and count it from the dimension customer. But if you want to know how many customers are actually ordering things, then you have to go to the fact sales. So we can go over here and say, okay, new measure, total active customers equal as well distinct count, because we're going to go to the fact table. So fact sales, and here we need the customer ID. So this is the count from the fact. Now we can go and create another one that is actually counting from the dimension. So base, maybe total customers equal. This time we can just go and use the count for the dimension because we don't have duplicates. Dimension, customer, and here we pick as well the ID. Over here, same thing. If you have a lot of customers, you can go and start like separating things with 1,000. Now, what else we can do? We can go to another fact. Like for example, here we have the fact order process. We can go and calculate the average number of days from the first step to the last step. So now how are we going to do this measure? First, we have to go and create maybe a column. Let me just go back over here to the table view. So look at this. We have all the steps, and I would like to go and calculate how many days that we have between the first step, the order date, and the last step, the pay date. And with that, we're going to get like a new measure for this fact. And on top of it, we're going to go and create a new calculation. So let's go and do that. First of all, we need a new column because we need calculation on the row level. So for example, this is going to be order to pay. Now we just want to find the differences between two dates. So there is a function called dateDiff. The first date is the order date. The second one is the last one. So it's going to be the pay date. And what is the difference? We are calculating how many days, not month or year. So this is the part that we are interested in. And actually that's it. So look at this. Now we are getting the total number of days that it took from the order to the payment. Now the next step is very simple. We're going to go and create a new measure in our collection where we're going to say, like for example, average order to pay equal average. Then we just go and pick our new measure. So it is the order to pay. So look at this. Now we have another measure based on another fact, but everything now together. So now if you are building a report, all what you have to do is to just go and open this one and start browsing all the measures of this data model. But of course, again, you don't have to go and sit and think about each single detail. Just create the obvious one, okay? Now I'm going to say for now, I'm going to stick with this. This is a good collection of measures that we can hand over together with the data model. Alright friends, now we are getting very close. We have now the last step in the last phase. We have to make sure that our data model is secure. So that means we have to go and apply the row level security mechanism on top of our data model. Let's go and do that. Okay, so now again, we have our star schema. We have those measures, and the last add-on that we have to add is the security. Now, first of all, to make sure that the security is ready, we have to go back to the Power Query and make sure that everything there is ready and clean. Okay, so this is gonna be our last table inside the stage, the security. Now, quickly by looking to this, you can see the header informations are not correct. So this should be the columns. And yes, we still have to follow the naming convention. So I'm gonna go and rename things. This is the user email, and this is my friend, the region. All right, now the last step is that I'm gonna go and grab it actually to the other supports. So with that, I don't have anything more in the stage that I have to work on. Look at this. We have here the dimensions, we have the facts, and the support gonna be the security table, since it doesn't belong to those two. All right, let's close and apply. All right, now look at this. It connects to our data model, but I have to make sure that it is correct. So let's go and just remove it. So we didn't need this relationship. And about this one is actually correct. So now again, let's first understand the security that we have here. So let's just talk about it. This is the security. Look at this. Here we have the user email addresses. Those are the employees of our business, and it looks like they are assigned to specific regions. Now, of course, in order to build this this, we have to talk to the security officers of our company and understand how the security works. They might say, you know what, each employee in our company is allowed to see only specific region. Like for example, Nora can see only the North America. She is not allowed to see the sales that are happening in Europe or Middle East. Same thing for Hans. Hans can see only Europe sales. So we have to understand the security requirements before we start like connecting things. So we cannot go blindly like making a security concept for the data model, and only after understanding, then we can start connecting things together. And then of course the next step is to think, okay, where are the region informations? In which facts, in which dimensions we can see that? Now of course it is very obvious. If you go to the dimension customers, you're gonna find over here the region information. So this is a very good starting point. Of course the question is, how are we gonna connect this security to our data model? And we usually do it on top of dimensions, because dimensions anyway go and filter the fact tables, and the security table gonna be filtering this dimension. Now it's very obvious that we have the dimension customer where we have the region over here. So this is a perfect candidate where we're gonna connect our security on top of this so that the user can see only specific customers, and this will be filtering as well our facts. So this is one way on how to create the security. There is another way on how to do it, is to go to the geographic dimension. As well here we have regions, and this one is connecting as well directly to our fact, which is really as well good candidate that we could use in order to filter our data model based on the security. Now how are we going to decide on this? Usually I do it like this. I go back to the data model and look to those two dimensions. So I can see here, for example, let me zoom in. This is the geo dimension, and you can see it is connected to the fact sales. So now if I put the security on top of this, it's going to go and filter only one fact table. But now the other one, the dimension customer, it is actually connected to two facts, the fact sales and the fact order process. So if I connect the security on top of this, I'm going to benefit in order to secure actually two facts, which is of course a nice thing. So I'm going to go and decide actually on connecting the security on top of the dimension customers, just because it secures more facts for me. But again, based on the requirements, we have to do those stuff. And now I saw like some weird scenarios where people can go and say, you know what, I want to secure the whole data model without any reason. So they start like forcing somehow the data model to use the security table on top of each fact. So they start like doing crazy things like by merging the facts just in order to get the region column inside each fact, and they destroy the grain because of this, just to add the security. At the end, maybe this is totally unnecessary. So always understand the security requirements and only apply it when it's needed. You don't have to secure every single dimension and fact. Like for example, is it really bad to show the dimension products for all our employees? I think it is no harm if they see the whole data. So that means for our project, let's say that we can apply the security on top of those two facts, the sales and the orders. So now how are we going to do it? It's going to be very simple. We're going to go and build a relationship between the security and the dimension. So we're going to go over here and say, okay, region by region, one-to-many relationship, and the filter is single direction. We have to make sure it is going in the right direction, of course. Well, yes, look at this. The filter direction of the security is going to the dimension, and the filter direction of the customers is going to both the fact sales and the fact order process. So this looks perfect for security. Of course, the next step is that we're going to go and start creating the managed roles. Otherwise, this will not work. So it's going to be very simple. We're going to go and create a new role. Let's go and call it regional access. And of course, in which table we are building the security, it's going to be on the dimension customer. And we're going to write a DAX calculation in order to secure it. So we're going to go and switch to DAX. Okay, so this is going to be very simple. We are just writing the DAX filter expression, where we're going to say, okay, I want to show only the rows where the region is matching the user region. So that means it has to go and find out what is the region for our current user. So it is inside the security table, the region. Then it should match the email address that we have in the security with the user, whoever is opening the Power BI reports. And for that, we have a nice function, the user principal name. So very simple thing. So it is not that hard. We are saying just check each row and ask this question. Does the region belong to the person that is looking at the report? If yes, then keep the row. Otherwise, go and drop it. So it is just a filter expression that's going to help us to filter the rows based on the region, of course. Actually, that's it. Let's go and save it. It's very important that we are getting green. Now let's go and close it. All right. So with this, we have applied the role-based security on top of our data model. But of course, we don't trust until we test. So how are we going to test it? I need one email like one of the employees. So for example, Nora, I'm going to go and copy its value, then go back to the model. And now we can try to view the model as Nora is opening the report and seeing it. How to do it? We can go over here and say view as, then we have to specify the rule that we just created, so the regional access, and we want to see it as another user, not as Baraa, because otherwise it's going to take the informations of my users, but we want to see it as Nora. Okay, so let's hit okay. Then you can see we can get like a warning, the regional access is activated, and we are viewing the object as Nora email. So now let's go and test. Look at this, we are already seeing like less details than before. So the total sales is not anymore the total number of sales of the whole data model, and we are seeing only the total sales that is based on the Nora's region. Of course, we can test this as well by going to the dimension customer, and let's go and grab the region. So you can see we are seeing only the North America. So my friends, that means the dimension is working, the fact table is as well working, and of course the last test, let's go and remove this effect. So if I stop viewing, look at this, suddenly I'm gonna see the total sale for everything, and as well I'm gonna see all the regions. Of course, now you can go and pick another email and test that, but for me it is already working, and we have applied the row level security on top of our data model. Alright friends, oh my god, I can say that we are done, we made it. Just sit back, look at this and enjoy it, because this is awesome. And remember at the very beginning I showed you this beautiful chaos and the nightmare data model where we had the many-to-many relationships everywhere. The filters are going from one table to another just in all directions, no star schema, nothing makes sense, full chaos. But now look back to this, we have clean, healthy star schema, or let's say galaxy, where we have fact tables and surrounded with dimensions. Every relationship and every filter is going to the right direction, the numbers are protected, and everything is friendly and easy to read. And I can tell you, this one was not an easy one. That was a really hard project and complicated, and if you stayed until the end and you built exactly this data model with me, then my friend, you should be proud of yourself. And I can say welcome to the club. With this, you went with me through the journey exactly like I do in my projects, in my companies. And I can tell you, over all projects, I just met like only few people that have this kind of skills where they can turn a chaos data model into a clean one, because most people actually don't know how to do data modeling and they skip it. But my friends, we are not one of them. We are the expert that can build a real data model, and this is really a rare skill that many companies need. So what I really recommend you is to go and make this project as your portfolio project. Of course, feel free to use it as your project, so go and share it as well with the others in LinkedIn, and you can tag me if you want. But what is way more important than this, if you are searching for a job and you got interviewed, make sure to talk about this project, because this is really rare. It's gonna make you quickly stand out the crowd. And if you got hired or you are already at the company and you joined a new project where they have exactly the data model, the chaos that I showed you at the start, what's gonna happen? This time you will not panic, you're gonna look at it and smile, because you're gonna remember exactly this project and you know what to do. So now, before we close this project, I would like to go through all the most important points that we have learned during the data modeling. So let's recap. The first point, before you build anything, always take time to analyze, explore, and understand. You have to understand the business, the processes, the data. The more you invest in exploring the data and understanding the business, the easier things gonna be during building the data model. Then the second point, always understand the grain of your tables, dimensions, and facts, and say it loudly what each row is representing. Once you know that, you will not make mistakes as you are connecting tables. Third point, always set rules and standards before you start the projects, and always follow them until the end. All the naming conventions, the prefixes, and so on. Rule number 4. Always remove the unnecessary data from the data model. This is very important. Always ask, do we really need those informations for reporting? Is it really necessary? Never be the person that's gonna leave things just in case. And the next one, our goal is always to build the star schema. All BI projects love it. It's just gonna make your life easier with the calculations. And of course, always avoid connecting fact tables together. Just use a shared dimension in between. And the filter directions are always from the dimensions to the facts. So my friends, that's it. Yes, this is the whole project. I really enjoyed making this project. For a while, I thought that I'm working at a company. I'm not recording a video and I'm talking to a colleague. I really had a lot of fun making this project. I really enjoyed it. Now it's time for you. So you have to go and practice on your own. Maybe go and grab any data model or your own data. Try to make a healthy data model out of it. So that's it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this project with me. If yes, then support the channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Share it with the others in order to reach nice people like you. queue. And I'm gonna say thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next project. Bye bye.
Catch you later, warehouse. See you on the flippity flip.